Scattered documents and notes lay forgotten on a messy desk. A young woman looks off into the distance, deep in thought about avoiding social connections. She stands alone in a classroom where chairs have been overturned, symbolizing her desire for isolation. Night falls over a modern apartment complex where she hopes to find peace. An elevator bell rings as the lift arrives at the ground floor. She steps inside the elevator, carrying her groceries and ready to end her day in solitude. Her finger presses the button for the third floor, signaling her destination. The metal doors begin to slide shut, promising a quiet ride up. Suddenly, a pair of hands slams into the gap to stop the elevator from leaving. A young man rushes inside, breathless from catching the lift just in time. He offers a friendly grin, seemingly oblivious to the woman's discomfort. The atmosphere becomes incredibly awkward as they stand together in the small space. She notices that the button for her floor is already lit, indicating they are heading to the same level. The elevator ascends, carrying the unlikely pair toward their homes. As soon as the doors open, she makes a quick dash toward her apartment. She walks briskly down the hallway, hoping the stranger isn't following her. To her absolute horror, the man stops at the door right next to hers. In a state of total panic, she fumbles with her bag to find her entryway. Her nerves get the better of her, and her keys clatter onto the floor. She freezes as the man steps closer to the dropped item. Her eyes go wide with anxiety at the thought of any social interaction. The neighbor kindly picks up the keys and hands them back to her. She takes them with a trembling hand, barely able to manage a thank you. He flashes a bright, cheerful smile, telling her it was no big deal. After a brief exchange of goodbyes, they finally head into their separate units. Once inside, she leans against the door with her heart racing from the encounter. She spirals into a panic, imagining her quiet life being ruined by constant neighborly small talk. The next day, classes are in session at Sindhu University. A massive crowd gathers at the campus pool for an intense swimming competition. Lu Haoming, a talented freshman, celebrates after breaking a school record in the freestyle final. While scanning the stands, the athlete spots a familiar face among the spectators. He looks surprised to see his new next-door neighbor watching the event. The girl is completely stunned to realize the star of the swim team is the man who lives next door. Realizing that the star athlete is not just a neighbor, but also a junior at her school, the protagonist is hit with a wave of social dread. Lu Haoming spots her and waves cheerfully, completely unaware of her internal panic. She immediately turns her back and tries to blend into the crowd to avoid a confrontation. Without a second thought, she breaks into a full sprint to get away from the scene. Lu Haoming calls out to her as she flees, but she refuses to stop or acknowledge him. She glances back in terror, realizing that her attempt to remain anonymous has likely failed. The champion athlete flashes a bright, winning smile as he confirms his identity to those around him. A group of enthusiastic students cheers for him, celebrating his first-place victory in the pool. Surrounded by a crowd of admirers, the young swimmer looks slightly overwhelmed by all the sudden attention. Having successfully slipped away, the protagonist collapses in a quiet corner to catch her breath. She reflects on how a single awkward interaction could potentially ruin her carefully maintained isolation. Night falls over the quiet apartment complex where both students reside. Thinking the coast is clear, the protagonist heads out to the bins to drop off some trash under the cover of darkness. She scans her surroundings cautiously, desperate to avoid any more social interaction for the day. As she walks through the dimly lit area, the sound of rapid footsteps echoes behind her. Lu Haoming comes charging through the night with a focused expression on his face. The protagonist freezes in place, realizing that fate has brought them together once again. The athlete's face comes into sharp focus as he recognizes the familiar face of his neighbor. He shouts out a greeting while rushing toward her, causing her to jump in surprise. He finally catches up and stops to catch his breath while she stands there looking like she wants to disappear. Despite being winded, he manages to flash a friendly smile and wave hello. She offers a hesitant, awkward gesture back, struggling to find the right words for the situation. He explains that he was running because the streetlights in the area have been unreliable lately. The protagonist looks on with a confused expression, wondering why he's sharing this information. He points out that he saw her at school earlier and asks if she is also a student at Sindhu University. She awkwardly admits she is a junior, which makes her 2 years older than the freshman athlete. He gives a respectful, wide-eyed smile and formally introduces himself to his new senior. She introduces herself as Sheng, though her only real desire is to end the conversation and go home. He suggests that since they both live alone, they should look out for one another from now on. The two of them stand together outside the building, an unlikely pair of neighbors. A formal notice on the wall warns residents of a planned power outage that will last until the morning. Sheng decides to take the stairs, assuming the elevators will be out of service during the blackout. Suddenly, a hand reaches out and makes contact with her shoulder to stop her in her tracks. Lu Haoming looks visibly anxious as he asks if he can stay over at her place for the night. The protagonist is completely stunned, her face turning pale at the sudden and bold request. An infographic illustrates the relationship rapidly escalating from complete strangers to potential roommates in the blink of an eye. Lu Haoming stands in the dark hallway, calling out to Sheng outside her apartment. He puts on a bright smile and begs her to let him stay, since they promised to look out for each other. Sheng looks back with a skeptical expression, clearly not remembering making such a deal. Desperate, Lu Haoming tries to squeeze inside while pleading that he's too scared to be home alone. The two struggle briefly at the door as Sheng tries to maintain her personal space. Lu Haoming blushes intensely, embarrassed by his own dramatic behavior. Sheng stares him down, completely unimpressed by his display. Seeing no other choice, Lu Haoming continues to plead until her resolve finally breaks. Sheng shines a light on the sofa, indicating where he will be spending the night. She hands over a blanket and a pillow, telling him he can leave once the power is back on tomorrow. Lu Haoming is deeply moved by her kindness, officially upgrading her status in his mind to a kind person. As he prepares to settle in, Sheng stops to give him one final warning. She tells him sternly not to wander around the apartment if he needs the restroom at night. Lu Haoming immediately imagines a horrific ghost story, wondering if the building is actually haunted. Sheng bids him good night and heads to her room, leaving him alone in the dark living area. He offers a nervous good night back while clutching his pillow for comfort. Time ticks away on the wall clock as the apartment remains shrouded in darkness. Lu Haoming lies wide awake on the couch, unable to find any rest. He tosses and turns, feeling the oppressive heat of the summer night. Suddenly, a new problem arises as he realizes he really needs to use the bathroom. He tries to wriggle around and hold it in, hoping he can make it until the morning. The discomfort becomes unbearable, making it impossible for him to relax. He struggles against the physical urge, his face contorting from the internal pressure. Finally giving up, he steps out from under the covers and prepares to move. Lu Haoming uses his phone as a flashlight to navigate the pitch-black apartment. He recalls Sheng's warning about seeing something bad if he wanders around. His nerves are on edge as he cautiously scans the unfamiliar environment. The light passes over a large bookshelf filled with various novels and comics. He notices several shelves dedicated to interesting collectibles and small keepsakes. Seeing her personal interests makes him smile, feeling like he is getting to know her better. However, he quickly feels guilty for looking around her private living space in the middle of the night. He eventually finds his way toward the kitchen area, still searching for the restroom. He slowly pushes open a door, hoping it is the right room. His eyes go wide with shock as the light hits something unexpected. A terrifying, shadowy figure with long hair stands directly in front of him. Lu Haoming's face freezes in a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. A blood-curdling scream rips through the quiet night, echoing across the entire apartment complex. Time ticks away as the night continues in silence. Lu Haoming cowers in the hallway, startled by a sudden presence. He looks up in shock, his eyes wide with surprise. Sheng stands over him, holding a phone flashlight to illuminate the dark corridor. Lu Haoming breathes a sigh of relief, realizing it's just his neighbor. He laughs off his fear, claiming he couldn't sleep because of the heat. Sheng rubs her eyes, exhausted from working late on a deadline. She clarifies that she isn't an artist, but a writer of serialized novels. Lu Haoming is instantly impressed and asks if he can check out her published work. Sheng is visibly mortified at the thought of someone she knows reading her stories. She warns him that her thrilling content might not be what he's into. Lu Haoming begins to wonder if she writes for the specific relationship-focused genres currently trending. He quickly apologizes for the awkward late-night conversation. Suddenly, the power snaps back on with a loud sound. Lu Haoming is thrilled to see the lights working again. He grabs his things and dashes back to his own place immediately. The next morning, Lu Haoming can't stop yawning after his sleepless night. He spots Sheng on the street and offers a cheerful morning greeting. He thanks her for the help, though Sheng looks a bit uncomfortable walking together. As they walk to school, he asks her when she first started her writing career. Sheng remains quiet as she considers how to answer. She explains that her interest in writing began back in high school. Lu Haoming recalls his own experience discovering Nietzsche illustrated literature during high school. He remembers a specific illustrated volume he once borrowed from a classmate. The memory of reading those stories still makes him feel a bit flustered. He vividly recalls the moment he was caught reading the material in private. His father had discovered him, offering a very stern and judgmental look. Even now, Lu Haoming can't help but cringe at the embarrassing memory. Sheng continues to walk beside him in silence as they near their destination. The two finally arrive at the campus gates together. Sheng worries that walking in together will start unnecessary rumors. She suddenly dashes off toward the building, leaving Lu Haoming confused. A firm hand suddenly drops onto Lu Haoming's shoulder from behind. His classmates surround him, claiming they've seen everything. The swim team corners Lu Haoming, demanding to know the identity of the girl he arrived with this morning. One teammate teases him about his past rejections while he tries to defend his reputation. Outside the school gymnasium stands quiet as the morning training session begins. The team starts their routine with synchronized foot drills to get their blood pumping. While stretching, the guys continue to pester Lu about his preference for older girls. Lu remains focused on the rigorous June training schedule, insisting that he has no time for romance. The athletes line up at the edge of the pool, ready to start their timed laps. Meanwhile, Sheng checks her phone calendar and realizes her next chapter deadline is fast approaching. She wanders the campus searching for a quiet quiet spot to overcome her writer's block. Hearing a whistle, she finds herself standing at the entrance of the gymnasium. She peeks inside, immediately worried that she's interrupted an active practice session. Down in the pool, a swimmer cuts through the water with incredible speed and technique. Sheng watches in awe, finding the display of athleticism quite impressive. A teammate checks the stopwatch and confirms that Lu has just shattered another record. The group debates if a relationship would help or hinder Lu's competitive drive. One teammate gets a playful slap for making a sarcastic comment about Lu's popularity. Lu reaches the end of the lane, tapping the wall to finish his high-speed run. He suddenly recoils after accidentally getting hit in the head by a stray object. Realizing she might be spotted, Sheng quickly tries to make an exit. The rest of the team notices a girl at the door and wonders if she's one of Lu's fans. Lu Haoming looks up and is genuinely surprised to see Sheng visiting the gym. He rushes over to the entrance to ask what brought her there. The other swimmers whisper among themselves, convinced she's the girl from the morning rumors. Sheng nervously explains that she's only there to find inspiration for her web novel. Lu is visibly confused about how a group of swimmers could help her writing process. He wonders if she's working on a sports-themed story as he stares at the empty pool. Feeling flustered, Lu covers himself and offers to give her a proper tour of the facility. Sheng agrees, though she remains incredibly anxious under the gaze of the other students. The teammates hide behind a corner, certain that the two are actually a couple. They decide to help the pair by setting up a classic romantic trope involving a slippery floor. A puddle is intentionally left right in the path of the unsuspecting duo. As Lu leads her toward the changing area, Sheng's foot hits the wet patch and she begins to slide. Her eyes widen in shock as she loses her balance completely. Sheng looks up, dazed after her sudden fall on the gym floor. The trio of teammates immediately crowd around her to block the view and offer frantic apologies. They hover over her anxiously, asking if she needs to visit the infirmary, while she tries to regain her composure. Overwhelmed by the sudden attention, Sheng clenches her fists and insists the tour was helpful enough for her research. She makes a quick exit, dashing away from the awkward situation as fast as possible. The teammates watch her go, worrying if they successfully hid their prank or if their captain is upset. Haoming stands silently, his expression unreadable after the chaotic incident. He remains still in the gym, processing what just happened while his friends talk in the background. Later in class, a lecture is underway while rows of students focus on their notes. Sheng's hands fly across her laptop keyboard as she works diligently on her writing project. Despite being in a full lecture hall, her mind is clearly preoccupied with her own thoughts. She rests her chin on her hand, debating how she should properly thank Haoming for the tour. She imagines various scenarios like treating him to a meal or giving a gift, but worries about a negative reaction. The stress of figuring out proper social etiquette causes her to grip her hair in frustration. Her attention drifts back to her laptop as she tries to recall the specific details of her fall. She sits in the classroom looking puzzled, unable to identify the smooth surface she grabbed while slipping. A closed door stands at the end of a hallway, leading back toward the athletic facilities. Inside the locker room, Haoming looks utterly devastated, feeling like his dignity has been compromised. He stands alone, tearfully hoping that she didn't actually see anything embarrassing during the accident. He leans against the lockers, dreading the idea of becoming accidental inspiration for her creative work. One of his teammates bursts in, excitedly claiming to have found some very important information. Haoming is caught off guard by the sudden intrusion, his face full of shock and concern. Meanwhile, Sheng walks through the campus, deciding to pick up a small token of appreciation. She heads toward the gymnasium, wondering if the gift she bought will be useful for a student-athlete. Back in the locker room, the teammate grins mischievously while holding up his phone to show a specific web novel. He tries to force Haoming to look at the screen, insisting that the content is actually quite interesting. He shoves the phone right in front of Haoming's face, refusing to let him ignore the discovery. Haoming covers his ears and squints his eyes shut, desperately trying to avoid seeing the screen. Outside the room, Sheng arrives and stands at the entrance, hesitating to go inside. She lingers by the door with her gift bag, catching a glimpse of the loud chaos happening within the room. Lu Haoming brushes off his teammate's phone to focus on his finals. He steps out of the locker room in a huff, while Sheng watches from the side. The star swimmer stops in his tracks when he notices her standing there. Sheng flinches, completely startled by the sudden confrontation. Without a word, she turns around and sprints away at full speed. Lu Haoming is left confused and shouts after her to find out why she's running. In her frantic escape, several blue keepsakes tumble out of her bag and onto the floor. Lu Haoming kneels down to gather the scattered items left behind in the hallway. He holds the footwear up, looking totally baffled by what he's found. The swimmer watches her disappear, questioning why she was carrying so many of these. He wonders if she's selling them as a part-time job to supplement her writing income. Determined to help, he chases after her with the items held high. Sheng reaches her door and leans against it, panting from the sudden workout. A shadow falls over her as Lu Haoming suddenly appears right behind her. She spins around in a panic, realizing she didn't get away after all. Lu Haoming stands there with an armful of the blue items she dropped. He shoves the pile back into her hands, explaining that he picked them up for her. He offers his support, telling her she can reach out if she ever needs help. Misunderstanding the situation, he asks for the price so he can buy a few pairs from her. Sheng desperately tries to clear up the confusion. She admits that the items were actually intended as a gift for the entire swimming team. Lu Haoming is surprised, but doesn't quite react the way she expected. He points out that the team already has their own gear and probably won't use them. Mortified that her gift was rejected, she shoves them back at him and tells him to toss them. She slams the door in his face, ending the awkward conversation immediately. Lu Haoming is left alone in the hallway, deciding to keep the new items since they shouldn't go to waste. The next morning arrives with the sun shining over the apartment complex. Lu Haoming rushes out of his place, realizing he's late for his morning training session. Sheng is already waiting inside the elevator, looking ready for her day. She frantically taps the button to close the doors before he can reach her. Lu Haoming slams against the closed doors in despair as the elevator leaves without him. Morning training concludes at the track, and the coach orders latecomers to run extra laps as punishment. One of the swimmers laughs as he notices the visible injuries on his teammate's face. Lu Haoming continues his punishment laps with a bandage across his nose and a frustrated expression. A close-up reveals the extent of the marks on Lu's face while he remains broodingly silent. His teammate asks why a star like him was late for training for the first time ever. The teammate admits he was up all night because he was hooked on Sheng's latest novel. A flashback shows the teammate happily scrolling through chapters on his phone while relaxing in bed. He became so engrossed in the story that he didn't realize it was already 3 in the morning. Desperate for a conclusion, he drops to his knees on the track and cries out for the next chapter. He clings to Lu's leg, begging him to use his connection with the author to get some spoilers. Lu tries to shake him off, surprised to find out his friend is a fan of such a specific genre. While trying to get free, Lu spots Sheng sitting on a bench at the edge of the field. Sheng sits quietly by herself, focused on reading a book. Lu calls out to her with a wave, while his friend joins in by shouting for plot details. Upon seeing them, Sheng immediately jumps up and flees the scene. Lu is left standing in the middle of the track, completely baffled by her sudden escape. Later, a cold drink clatters into the retrieval bin of a vending machine. The two friends debate whether Sheng is actually avoiding Lu or if she just didn't see him. Sheng happens to walk past the vending machines while clutching her belongings tightly. She casts a dark and intense glare toward them as she passes. Lu attempts a friendly greeting, but her hostile reaction leaves him completely stunned. She breaks into a full sprint to get away from them, leaving the boys in a state of shock. His teammate points out the obvious fact that she definitely saw him that time. In the locker room, Lu sits dejectedly on a bench, trying to process why he is being shunned. The other swimmers walk by praising Lu for the high-quality footwear he gifted the team. Noticing Lu's gloomy mood, two teammates decide it's time to offer him some unsolicited advice. One teammate explains that when a girl is ignoring you, there is a simple protocol to follow. He insists that the best course of action is to apologize first, regardless of who is at fault. The advice strikes a chord, and Lu experiences a sudden moment of clarity. He stands up with a determined look, ready to go and apologize immediately. The scene transitions to the outside of the school buildings under the afternoon sun. Lu wanders through the campus, searching for Sheng to finally clear the air. He stops when he hears a group of nearby students gossiping about her. The students whisper about her habits, claiming she only acts distant to avoid socializing with them. Lu listens with a grim expression as the group continues to spread harsh rumors about her character. Lu Haoming clenches his fist in frustration as he overhears students spreading malicious gossip. He stands up and shouts at them, firmly defending Sheng's character. Startled by the sudden confrontation, Sheng accidentally drops her books on the floor. She quickly crouches down to gather her things while Lu Haoming spots her from the hallway. Lu Haoming looks shocked to see her and calls out her name. He rushes toward her, offering to help pick up her scattered notes. Nearby students watch the interaction and continue to whisper cruel rumors about her intentions. Sheng ignores his help and gathers her books herself, maintaining a cold demeanor. She tells him it is better if they don't get too close to one another. Sheng walks away, leaving him behind as she worries that her bad reputation will affect him. Lu Haoming stands alone in the hallway, looking dejected as she disappears. Later in class, he sits at his desk looking completely gloomy and preoccupied. A red-haired teammate approaches him with a rose, making light of the situation. The teammate brags about his own success with girls while teasing Lu Haoming for being rejected. He jokingly suggests that Lu Haoming change his hair color to be more attractive. Lu Haoming snaps back, clarifying that they aren't even in a relationship. He rests his chin on his hands, admitting he is deeply worried about the rumors targeting her. The teammate asks if he is concerned about how the gossip will affect his own standing. Lu Haoming explains his only concern is why such a kind person is being treated this way. The teammate claims to know the origin of the rumors, acting as a source of information. He mentions a past rumor from her high school involving a misunderstanding with a faculty member. He warns that anyone who tries to befriend her ends up being slandered by the rest of the school. Lu Haoming listens intently, processing the difficult situation she has been facing alone. Sheng walks through the crowded campus, feeling feeling isolated as people avoid her. Other students continue to point and whisper as she passes by them in the hallway. She keeps her head down, trying to ignore the hostile environment. Suddenly, a hand slams against a pillar next to her, stopping her in her tracks. Lu Haoming catches his breath, having run all the way to find her. She looks up in surprise, but quickly tries to brush him off so she can leave. As she walks away, Lu Haoming remembers his teammate's advice to be brave and supportive. He takes a moment to steady himself, determined not to let her walk away again. Lu Haoming calls out to her and boldly asks her to go out with him in front of everyone. Sheng walks away, leaving a stunned silence in her wake after the unexpected confrontation. She turns back with a look of pure shock, wondering what on earth was just said to her. The onlookers are completely floored by the sudden public confession, with some even giving a thumbs up to the bold move. Haoming immediately panics and blushes, realizing his blunt words have made the entire situation incredibly awkward. Sheng hides her face in embarrassment, deciding it's best to flee before things get even more complicated. Haoming is left frozen in place, devastated that his attempt to help has resulted in another massive mess. He remains in a complete daze later while carrying out his duties cleaning the pool. Even during class, Haoming is totally out of it, unable to focus on his studies as the awkward moment loops in his head. His coach tries to give him important news about the provincial team, but Haoming is too distracted to care. As summer vacation kicks off, Haoming walks home alone while everyone else celebrates around him. The flickering streetlights seem to mirror his gloomy mood as he trudges through the night. He feels like the entire world is dimming just to match his streak of bad luck. Hoping to change his fortunes, Haoming decides to take a different path home through the back alleys. While walking, he spots a small rabbit charm lying on the ground and stops to pick it up. Suddenly, a girl rushes past him in a state of pure panic, nearly knocking him over. She cowers behind him, trembling with fear about something she saw deeper in the alley. Tearfully, she explains that there is a scary-looking person by the riverbank. Haoming tries to look tough, despite being internally terrified of whatever might be lurking in the dark. He realizes the rabbit charm belongs to Sheng and grips it tightly in his hand. After telling the girl to head back for safety, he prepares to investigate the area. Haoming sprints toward the river, terrified that Sheng might be the one in danger. Nearby, Sheng is using her phone's light to search the ground for her lost belongings. She retraces her steps, frustrated that she can't find her items after her earlier collision. She stops when she thinks she hears Haoming calling her name, wondering if she's starting to hallucinate. Haoming creeps through the darkness, visibly shaking with fear while still trying to find her. He nearly jumps out of his skin when a black cat crosses his path in the shadows. Sheng spots him and calls out, confused by his bizarre and shaky behavior. Suddenly, a wet hand reaches out from the water and grips the edge of the walkway. A tall, dark figure emerges from the river, dripping wet and looking extremely ominous. Sheng watches in stunned silence as the figure approaches her through the gloom. Haoming immediately leaps into action, throwing a punch to protect Sheng from the mysterious stranger. Haoming rushes to Sheng's side, making sure she hasn't been harmed by the mysterious figure. The stranger is revealed to be Yu, who looks completely disheveled after his ordeal in the river. Clinging to his bruised face, Yu cries out in pain and calls Haoming a jerk for the surprise attack. Haoming stares back in complete shock, realizing he just punched his own friend. Haoming grabs Yu by the collar, demanding to know why he was lurking around the park at night. Yu explains that he had a date earlier, but the intense heat caused his red hair dye to run down his face. By the time his date arrived, the dripping dye looked like a scene from a horror movie, causing the girl to panic. Terrified by his appearance, the girl accidentally shoved Yu off the bridge and into the water. After Yu finally manages to climb out of the river, Haoming helps clean up his facial injury with a bandage. Haoming points out that anyone would be scared of someone looking like that in the dark, though he admits he may have overreacted. To keep the mess contained, Haoming keeps Yu in the bathroom while Sheng watches the chaos unfold. Haoming tells his friend to wash up and go home immediately, but a stubborn Yu refuses to leave. Haoming stands frozen as he imagines the awkwardness of Yu's request to stay the night and chat like teenagers. The mental image of them sharing a bed is so disturbing to Haoming that he has a visible physical reaction. He immediately rejects the idea, slamming the door shut while Sheng looks on in confusion. Haoming becomes flustered, worried that Sheng will misunderstand their relationship or use it as inspiration for her writing. Yu starts crying, threatening to go and beg Sheng for a place to stay if Haoming won't help him. Feeling cornered by his friend's shameless tactics, Haoming reluctantly agrees to let him stay for the night. Feeling like an awkward third wheel, Sheng decides it's time to head home and continue her search for her lost keys. Before she can walk away, Haoming calls out to stop her. The two stand in an awkward silence for a moment as Haoming tries to find the right words. He quickly apologizes for his earlier behavior, claiming his confession was just a slip of the tongue that shouldn't be taken seriously. Sheng listens intently as the atmosphere between them remains tense. Haoming admits that he values their bond and truly wants to remain friends despite the recent drama. Looking down, Sheng confesses that she is actually very poor at socializing and often struggles to connect with others. others. She mumbles about how she panics in crowds and feels the urge to hide whenever she sees someone she knows. Sheng explains that her distant behavior was just her way of shying away from problems and offers a sincere apology. Night falls over the city as stars twinkle through the open window. Sheng rolls around on her bed, dying of embarrassment after being so honest with Haoming earlier. She gazes at her phone, looking over Haoming's social media profile. She remembers him being absolutely ecstatic at the prospect of just being friends. At the time, she was completely caught off guard by his sudden burst of energy. Haoming was so thrilled that he started jumping for joy right in front of her. He even shouted the news to his friend Ji, who was busy washing his hair in the bathroom. Eager to make things official, Haoming insisted they exchange contact information immediately. He leaned in way too close in his excitement, causing Sheng to panic while pulling up her phone. In his rush, he accidentally showed her a payment QR code instead of his friend ID, leaving her laughing at his unpredictable nature. Safely tucked under her blankets, she realizes she finally has her first male friend in college. Over at Haoming's place, Ji is relaxing on the bed while Haoming remains dazed by his successful day. Ji complains about being ignored and reminds his friend they were supposed to stay up chatting. Haoming isn't having it and aggressively throws a pillow to silence his talkative guest. He tells Ji to go to sleep since they have swimming evaluations early the next morning. As they settle in for the night, Ji asks if Haoming has actually bothered to read Sheng's novel yet. Haoming stays quiet under his blanket, hoping the conversation will just end. Ji taunts him, claiming he isn't a real friend if he hasn't even looked at her writing. This immediately strikes a nerve, causing Haoming to sit up and snap back at the accusation. He demands the link to the story, determined to prove his loyalty as a friend right then and there. He pulls up the novel titled Spiritual Language and begins reading the first few chapters. As he continues, the dark themes of the story start to genuinely freak him out. Traumatized by the horror elements, he cautiously approaches Ji's bed in the middle of the night. He dives under the covers with his friend, begging to share the bed because he's too scared to be alone. He trembles under the blanket, shocked that someone as cute as Sheng could write something so terrifying. The next morning at the pool, Haoming looks completely drained and haunted by what he read. He can't stop thinking about the water ghosts from the story, even as the evaluation is about to begin. He tries his best to stay calm and focus on the race, while taking his position on the starting block. The buzzer sounds, and the swimmers all dive headfirst into the water to start the evaluation. Onlookers are impressed, noting that Haoming is moving incredibly fast despite his earlier gloomy mood. However, his speed is fueled by pure terror as he hallucinates ghostly hair reaching for his feet in the water. He reaches the end of the lane and prepares to make a quick turn to maintain his lead. His panic gets the better of him, and he accidentally slams his head right into the side of the pool. The entire crowd is left in shock after witnessing the sudden and painful collision. Haoming floats motionless in the pool while his teammates panic and shout to get him out of the water immediately. Bystanders gossip about the awesome newbie, who was handpicked by the coach, questioning what went wrong. Fellow students laugh at Haoming for slamming into the pool wall during his turn, dismissing the rumors about his talent. A towel-clad Haoming stands by while the coach expresses his frustration over the performance. An imposing figure in a red jacket watches Haoming from a distance with a piercing gaze. Zheng Bin, a national team swimmer, looks on with a serious and judgmental expression. Zheng Bin's intense stare causes the other students to feel visibly shocked and intimidated. The students identify the observer as Zheng Bin, a high-level athlete from the national team. Haoming trembles with fear as Zheng Bin continues to stare him down from across the pool deck. Zheng Bin stands with his arms crossed, appearing unbothered by the rumors swirling around him. The freshmen discuss the source of the rumors, attributing the gossip to the cleaning staff. One student dismisses both Zheng Bin and Haoming as potential frauds. A nearby student, Shi Fei, reacts with visible anger at the disrespectful comments. Zheng Bin walks away, seemingly indifferent to the insults of the freshmen. Haoming looks pale and tearful, deciding it is best for him to head home early to recover. A young woman stands outside an apartment building with a concerned and hesitant look. Haoming stands gloomily in front of an apartment door as the woman watches him from the hallway. Haoming turns around with a startled expression, asking if the day feels spooky. He recalls the intense pressure of the day, feeling like he was being watched by both the coach and Zheng Bin. Haoming struggles with his key, unable to get the door to open. He panics, frantically shaking the door handle while worrying that a supernatural force is holding it shut. The woman looks on with an exasperated face as Haoming screams in terror. She points out that he was actually trying to open her door instead of his own. Finally, inside his own apartment, Haoming shuts the door and sighs with relief. He clutches his head in frustration, embarrassed by his behavior in front of Sheng. Looking tired and lonely, he admits to himself that he misses his friend's company. Haoming stands in his dark living room, feeling the weight of being alone at night. Ji appears at the door with a friendly smile, greeting Haoming just in time. Haoming is overjoyed to see his friend and rushes toward him with open arms. Haoming desperately clings to Ji's clothes, begging him to stay because he's afraid of the dark. Ji places a hand on Haoming's shoulder, telling him to be more mature as an adult. The two share a tense moment as Ji suggests it's time for a special delivery. Ji shows Haoming his phone, confirming that an order for a protective charm has been placed. Ji tries to leave, but Haoming grabs his arm to stop him. Haoming shouts at his friend, demanding that he stay through the long night until the package arrives. The next day, Haoming arrives at the pool deck looking energetic and ready for the training match. He runs toward the pool, claiming he's no longer afraid of anything. Suddenly, a wave of nervousness washes over him as he pauses mid-stride. Haoming huddles by the wall, checking his phone and crying about his missing delivery while his teammates look on in confusion. Sheng spends her holiday at home, scrolling through her phone to enjoy her time away from the crowds. Her table is a mess of snacks, tissues, and her laptop as she fully embraces the relaxation of a day off. While lounging on the couch, she decides to check the latest comments on her web novel. She notices a series of messages from a user named Passerby Lu, who seems absolutely terrified by every chapter. The commenter is even losing sleep over the latest update featuring a drowned ghost. Sheng is baffled that someone so easily frightened would force themselves to read all the way to the most recent chapter. She quickly realizes the scared reader is Lu Haoming and wonders how he managed to find her work under a pen name. Distracted, she starts searching for advice on how friends are supposed to interact with one another. She sits among her snacks, lost in thought about her social life and her connection to her neighbor. Suddenly, she snaps out of it, questioning why she is so worried about getting closer to the swimmer. Her internal debate is interrupted by a frantic notification from Haoming himself. The message is a desperate plea for help, featuring an image of Haoming looking completely distressed. He explains that a critical parcel was delivered to the wrong address and begs her to bring it to the gym so he can compete. Sheng stares at the screen in disbelief at the sheer urgency of his request. She can't help but wonder what kind of item could possibly be important enough to affect his entire career. To help him out, she endures a miserable, crowded bus ride where the other passengers won't stop staring at her. One passenger offers her a seat, but the social anxiety of the situation makes her feel completely dizzy. As the bus reaches her stop, she accidentally bumps into another rider during the commute. The vehicle comes to a jarring stop at the gymnasium center, nearly knocking her off her feet. In the chaos, the parcel rips open, spilling a collection of protective keepsakes and charms all over the floor. Sheng freezes in horror as she realizes the nature of the items she's delivering. She collapses to her knees to gather the charms, while the surrounding crowd watches her with judgmental expressions. Utterly humiliated, she gathers the items and sprints away, cursing Haoming for putting her through this. At the pool, a nervous Haoming lets out a loud sneeze while waiting for his delivery. He stands by the water's edge, anxiously checking his phone and wondering if his help is ever going to arrive. Zhang Bin approaches him with a stern expression, telling him to stop making a scene and leave the premises. The national swimmer calls him a loser and suggests he shouldn't be part of the team if he can't handle the pressure. Zhang Bin smirks to himself, believing his harsh words will act as a necessary wake-up call for the younger athlete. However, his plan backfires as Haoming begins to tear up from the combined stress of the match and the missing charms. The swimmer's mood shifts instantly when he spots Sheng arriving at the entrance. She bursts through the doors, panting heavily after her frantic run to get there on time. While the other swimmers watch in total confusion, she hands over the pile of protective charms to the relieved athlete. Haoming clutches the keepsakes to his chest, declaring that he can finally rest easy now that he's protected from ghosts. Sheng tries to tell him that her stories are just fiction, but he is too focused on his new sense of security to listen. Seeing how much her writing has affected his mental state, she looks at him with a mix of guilt and concern. She steps forward to get his full attention before he heads off to his training match. Placing her hands on his shoulders, she gives him a serious pep talk, urging him to do his best and remember that the scary stories aren't real. Haoming freezes in place when he feels a sudden touch on his face. Sheng looks back with a confused expression, wondering what's going through his head. Suddenly, Haoming's confidence hits an all-time high as he gathers his protective keepsakes. He tosses the charms aside with newfound determination, telling Sheng to keep a close eye on his performance. Pumping his fist with intensity, he vows to prove himself in the water. Sheng is completely unimpressed by the display and just wants to head home as the starting buzzer sounds. Haoming dives into his lane and pushes himself harder than ever, fueled by the fact that he's being watched. On the sidelines, Sheng takes a curious peek at the unfolding competition. Zhang Bin watches from the deck, his expression darkening with a competitive glare. Feeling the heat of the rival's intense gaze, Sheng tries to back away and disappear into the background. Zhang Bin is stunned to see Haoming's speed, realizing that encouragement is far more effective than his own taunts. The results flash across the board, confirming that Haoming has secured first place with an impressive time. Haoming celebrates his victory in the pool, leaving the other swimmers in total disbelief at his sudden improvement. A gloomy atmosphere surrounds Zhang Bin as he walks away, forced to acknowledge his rival's skill. His teammates watch nervously, sensing that Zhang Bin is about to do something drastic in response to the loss. In a fit of competitive intensity, Zhang Bin begins to shed his outer athletic gear. Sheng watches in confusion and alarm as Zhang Bin approaches her while his teammates try to hold him back. Meanwhile, a beaming Haoming rushes over, desperate for a bit of recognition for his win. He runs toward her with high energy, looking for a celebratory high five. Overwhelmed by the chaotic energy from both sides, Sheng tries to shrink away. In the confusion, Haoming accidentally makes contact with Zhang Bin's Bin's chest as Yu Sheng ducks for cover. Haoming stares blankly, realizing he just made a major blunder in his excitement. Yu Sheng is stuck in the middle of a very awkward standoff between the two rival athletes. Onlookers notice the marks left behind on Zhang Bin, adding to the embarrassment of the scene. Haoming quickly releases his grip, looking mortified as he tries to apologize for the accidental touch. The impact leaves clear handprints on Zhang Bin's skin, making the awkward moment even more visible. Teammates descend on the group to scold Haoming for his lack of spatial awareness, while Yu Sheng remains trapped. Zhang Bin stares down his rival, the tension between them reaching a boiling point. With a final warning, Zhang Bin points at Haoming and declares that their rivalry is far from over. Haoming tries to explain that the previous physical clash was a total accident, but a frustrated Zhang Bin isn't interested in excuses. The rival walks away with a petty gesture, declaring that he won't be losing the next race. Left alone, Haoming reflects on just how incredibly awkward the entire situation has become. He starts to worry that Yu Sheng might have witnessed the commotion and misunderstood the nature of the confrontation. Hoping to smooth things over, Haoming decides to treat Yu Sheng to some milk tea as a thank you gift for her support. He quickly returns with 2 drinks, looking much more cheerful and ready to move on from the day's drama. He hands a cup over to Yu Sheng, who accepts the gesture with a quiet word of thanks. The two walk toward the bus stop together, discussing the cold weather as they prepare to head home. In the middle of the crowded sidewalk, a passerby accidentally bumps into Yu Sheng, forcing Haoming to catch her so she doesn't fall. The stranger offers a quick apology before disappearing back into the busy crowd. Haoming keeps a protective hand on her shoulder for a moment to ensure she is steady during the hectic rush. Feeling a bit flustered by the proximity, he quickly pulls back and tries to maintain his composure. When the bus finally arrives, a massive surge of people rushes the doors, separating the two in the chaos. Yu Sheng finds herself getting squeezed by the aggressive crowd as everyone fights for a spot inside. Haoming manages to board first and urgently calls out for her to keep up before the doors close. Unfortunately, Yu Sheng is cut off by the crowd and can only watch as the doors slam shut right in front of her. Haoming stares back helplessly from the window as the vehicle begins to pull away. Yu Sheng is left standing alone at the stop, watching the bus disappear into the distance. The following day, Haoming stands outside his apartment feeling incredibly guilty about leaving his friend behind. He recalls how exhausted and worn out she seemed when she finally made it back later that evening. Suddenly, Yu Sheng appears in the hallway looking pale and unwell, which gives Haoming quite a scare. Seeing her squat down in obvious distress, he rushes over to check if she is seriously injured. Yu Sheng tries to hide her pain with a forced smile and a thumbs up, but Haoming can tell she is lying about being okay. Internally, she struggles with how to explain that she is simply dealing with intense monthly discomfort. Haoming tries to help her up, but she remains doubled over, admitting that the pain is becoming unbearable. Growing increasingly concerned, Haoming insists that they head to the hospital immediately to get her checked out. Yu Sheng grabs his shirt to stop him, desperate to avoid a medical trip for something so routine. Haoming becomes anxious and loud, demanding to know why she won't just tell him what is wrong. Pushed to her limit, she finally shouts out the truth about her physical condition and her need for personal health supplies. The scene shifts to a local supermarket, where the aisles are packed with shoppers. Zhang Bin is there with a friend who points out that his stern expression makes him look very unapproachable. Zhang Bin reflects on his own face, wondering if he really looks that unfriendly to others. His friend tells him to wait while she looks for lotion, leaving him alone with the shopping cart. In another part of the store, Haoming stands in the personal care aisle, feeling completely overwhelmed by the variety of health products. He carefully examines the different brands, determined to pick the right supplies for Yu Sheng. However, he suddenly turns around and realizes he has run into his rival, Zhang Bin, at the most embarrassing possible moment. Haoming looks completely overwhelmed and awkward while holding hygiene products in the middle of the store. Nearby, Zhang Bin stares at him, wondering if he should actually initiate a conversation. Zhang Bin eventually approaches his rival, who is still standing frozen in the middle of the aisle. Haoming tries to pretend he doesn't notice the other boy, but their eyes meet in a moment of pure discomfort. Haoming looks down, feeling the immense pressure of being caught in such a personal situation. Deciding to break the ice, Haoming holds out the items and asks Zhang Bin for advice on which product would be best to buy. Zhang Bin is baffled by the request, wondering if Haoming is just trying to show off his relationship. Zhang Bin tries to follow his sister's advice to be friendly, but his forced smile only makes the situation creepier for Haoming. The two rivals stand together in a heavy, tense atmosphere that feels incredibly out of place. Suddenly, a cheerful girl holding cartons of milk approaches the group. Haoming watches as the girl walks right up to Zhang Bin. She introduces herself as Zheng Yun, Zhang Bin's younger sister, and mentions she is in the same class as Yu Sheng. Haoming struggles to remember where he has heard her name before. Zheng Yun excitedly asks if the hygiene products are for his girlfriend, Yu Sheng. Haoming becomes visibly flustered and tries to stutter out a denial. He eventually clarifies that while he is buying the items for her, they are not actually dating. Zhang Yun explains that there are rumors at school about them, and she has always wanted to befriend the quiet novelist. She apologizes for believing the gossip and looks genuinely interested in becoming friends with Yu Sheng. Later, Haoming returns to Yu Sheng's place and tells her everything the girl said. He hands over the bag of essentials he purchased for her recovery. Yu Sheng takes the bag, though she is still struggling with severe physical discomfort. She finds it hard to believe that anyone would actually want to be her friend. Yu Sheng heads to the bathroom with the supplies, telling Haoming to make himself at home. Haoming sits alone on the couch, feeling incredibly out of place in the room. He grows increasingly uneasy as he realizes how personal the environment feels now that he's older. He springs to his feet the moment he hears the door click open. Yu Sheng reappears, looking pale and completely drained by her cramps. She crawls back into bed to rest, and Haoming tells her to get some good sleep. Haoming remembers Zhang Yun's suggestion and prepares some medicine to help with the pain. After taking the medicine, Yu Sheng finally drifts off into a deep sleep. Haoming watches her, relieved to see that her pained expression has finally relaxed. He looks closely at her face as she rests peacefully under the covers. Haoming stays by her side, quietly watching over her while she recovers. Haoming reaches out toward Yu Sheng's face as she sleeps. He quickly retreats in a panic, apologizing for his impulsive action. Yu Sheng starts mumbling about a teacher in her sleep, catching him off guard. He watches her closely, wondering if she's dreaming about a memory from her past. She clenches the blankets and looks distressed while continuing to sleep talk. Haoming looks on with a nervous expression, unsure of what to do. The tension breaks as she falls back into a quiet, snoring sleep. Haoming spirals into a comedic panic, worrying that a teacher might have treated her poorly. The scene shifts to a flashback of a quiet classroom. A younger Yu Sheng frantically searches through her school bag. She realizes her private notebook is missing and fears someone might read her writing. She remembers leaving it with her homework and realizes it might have been handed in accidentally. Thinking fast, she decides to head to the faculty office to retrieve it before it's seen. To her horror, she finds her teacher already sitting at his desk, reading her notebook. She slams her hands on his desk, begging him to stop reading immediately. She hides her face in total embarrassment, fearing he might tease her about her hobby. Instead of mocking her, the teacher admits he found the story very interesting. He offers her words of encouragement, suggesting she should finish the story and get it published. Yu Sheng stands there in shock, holding her notebook close to her chest. Back in the present, the pleasant scent of food wafts through her dream. She suddenly wakes up, her stomach growling with intense hunger. Haoming appears at the door with a spatula, happily inviting her to eat. Seeing him so domestic and helpful, Yu Sheng is genuinely impressed. He remains focused at the stove, determined to provide her with a comforting meal. He presents several delicious-looking dishes, leaving Yu Sheng stunned by his skill. Haoming watches her with high expectations, eager for her to taste his cooking. She takes her first bite of the food he prepared. He leans in with an excited expression, waiting for her reaction. A sudden phone notification ruins the mood, and Haoming hits the table in frustration. Yu Sheng checks the message while Haoming sulks over the interrupted moment. She suddenly panics, shouting that there is a major emergency. It turns out her father is approaching the building, completely unaware of the guests. Yu Sheng grabs a decorative skeleton head, needing to hide it quickly. She shoves the whole skeleton into Haoming's arms, explaining her dad is terrified of them. Haoming finds himself face-to-face with the creepy prop. He stands frozen in absolute terror, revealing that he's just as scared of skeletons as her father is. Haoming looks worried as he is patted on the shoulder. The pair stands in the hallway, filled with dread as the elevator doors open. Yu Sheng's father arrives with a bright smile, carrying a large bag of supplies. Haoming and Yu Sheng are caught off guard by the father's sudden appearance. The father's friendly expression instantly shifts into a sharp, suspicious glare. He stands between them, questioning why the young man is standing so close to his daughter. The father looms over Haoming, demanding to know exactly who he is. Haoming nervously identifies himself as a neighbor, while Yu Sheng questions her dad's fierce look. The father scans the young man from head to toe, looking for any signs of trouble. His gaze drops to the floor, where he spots an unexpected anatomical prop. He shouts in confusion, prompting Haoming and Yu Sheng to exchange awkward glances. Haoming quickly hugs the prop and claims it belongs to him, calling it his cute little skeleton. He tries to act natural with the model while the others watch with total disbelief. The father smiles, deciding he's too tired from his travels to deal with the oddity. He leads Yu Sheng toward her apartment while Haoming gives a supportive thumbs up. Suddenly, the father stops and turns back with an intimidating aura. He sternly orders Haoming to take his medical prop back home immediately. Haoming forces a polite smile and wishes them well, despite his internal panic. The apartment door slams shut with a loud crash, ending the confrontation. Haoming is left standing in the hallway with his rice bowl and the skeleton, feeling hungry and confused. Inside the apartment, the father reveals a spread of favorite foods like pickled radishes and crabs. He cheerfully presents a jar of health supplements sent over by Yu Sheng's mother. He immediately notices Yu Sheng's pale complexion and asks if she is feeling unwell. He scolds her for not taking care of herself and indulging in cold drinks. Yu Sheng listens to the lecture before asking why he decided to visit alone. The father explains he had to check on her since she didn't visit home during her break. He argues that she should have just written her novel at home, where she'd be looked after. Yu Sheng looks away, insisting that her home environment isn't ideal for her creative work. The father pouts like a child, upset that she won't even share the title of her story. As he walks around, he accidentally steps on a stray piece of the anatomical model. He screams in terror, while Yu Sheng frantically promises to return the item to Haoming later. In a total panic, she rushes toward the kitchen to get him some rice. The father becomes suspicious, wondering why Haoming's belongings are scattered around the apartment. Meanwhile, back in his own place, Haoming sits in total silence. He eats his meal in the company of the amical model, feeling completely spooked. Haoming wakes up in a cold sweat, hoping the previous night's events were just a bad dream. Unfortunately, the skeleton prop is still there, lounging on the sofa and seemingly staring right at him. Terrified, he ducks back under the covers, wondering if the prop has been watching him sleep all night. Unable to take the creepy atmosphere anymore, he bolts out of his room. Checking his phone, he realizes it's only 6 in the morning and decides to head out early for training. As he steps into the hallway, he nearly collides with Yu Sheng, giving them both a massive fright. He asks her why she's sitting out in the hallway at such an early hour. Yu Sheng explains that she has a looming deadline but can't focus with her father around. She's stuck in a loop of worrying that her typing will wake him or that he'll try to read her work while he's awake. Haoming joins her on the stairs, admitting he's starving after barely eating the night before. Feeling bad for his situation, Yu Sheng gives him a sympathetic pat on the head. She offers to buy him breakfast, since she's also hungry from staying up all night. They head to a quiet nearby stall to grab a quick meal before the morning rush. While they eat, she apologizes for all the trouble her father is causing him lately. She then hands over a skeletal keepsake that was accidentally left behind the day before. Haoming panics and quickly hides the prop under the table. He warns her to keep things like that out of sight, so they don't scare the other customers. Thinking of her work situation, he offers her his spare key so she can write at his place while he's away at training. Yu Sheng is hesitant at first, not wanting to be a burden. He insists and shoves the key toward her, reminding her that they're friends and it's no big deal. She finally gives in and accepts the offer with a smile. Haoming looks pleased that he could help her out. After finishing their meal, he waves goodbye and heads off to his training session. Yu Sheng returns to her apartment, only to find her father waiting for her at the door. He looms over her with a suspicious look, demanding to know where she has been. She quickly holds up the bag of breakfast she bought as a convenient excuse. Her father immediately softens, touched by what he thinks is a sweet gesture from his daughter. He then asks about the neighbor boy and whether he's also staying in the city for the holidays. Yu Sheng explains that Haoming has to stay for his intensive swimming training. When her father asks how good he is, she admits that he's actually the top-ranked swimmer in his group. Her father is stunned to hear her actually praise someone else for once. He becomes incredibly jealous and decides he needs to go see this #1 athlete for himself. The father tracks down the training center and asks for Lu Haoming. One of the other swimmers sees the father's scarred face and immediately assumes he's a dangerous gangster looking for trouble. The swimmer begins to panic, wondering if he should call the police, while the father struggles to maintain eye contact with the much taller athlete. A swimmer approaches Yu Sheng's father to see if he needs any assistance while hanging around the facility. The father explains he is there to evaluate Lu Haoming's swimming abilities and see what the young man is capable of. Realizing the man isn't looking for a fight, the teammate relaxes and drops his guard. The swimmer directs him to the pool area before making a quick exit to avoid further conversation. Left alone, the father finds the behavior of the younger generation quite strange and difficult to understand. Haoming encounters a friend who asks how Yu Sheng is doing lately and mentions her visiting the pool. He explains that she has been staying home to focus on her latest writing project and hasn't been out much. Overhearing the conversation, the father feels a surge of jealousy that everyone else seems to know about her work except him. Back at home, Yu Sheng is surprised when her father suddenly bursts in with a series of frantic questions. He demands the title of her novel, upset that even the neighbor from next door has had the chance to read it. The father throws a fit of despair, unable to handle being the only one left in the dark about her hobby. Frustrated by the intrusion, Yu Sheng slams her laptop shut to protect her privacy. She confronts him directly about his habit of following her friends around and invading her personal space. The father looks stunned and guilty after being called out by his daughter for his overbearing behavior. He tries to justify his actions as fatherly concern while Yu Sheng stands up to end the argument. Yu Sheng tells him his constant suspicion of everyone around her is the real problem. She decides to head out for some fresh air to escape the mounting tension in the room. The father is left standing alone in silence after the door slams shut in his face. Haoming returns home in a good mood, carrying a bag of supplies for the evening. He is nearly scared out of his skin when he spots a dark figure lurking in the shadows of the hallway. It turns out to be Yu Sheng's father, who is currently wallowing in self-pity on the floor. Haoming asks the man why he is sitting in the hallway instead of heading inside his own home. Seeing the awkward situation, Haoming decides it is best to mind his own business and keep moving. He heads into his apartment while the father remains outside, continuing to pout in the hallway. A sudden power outage hits the building, causing both men to cry out in terror as the lights vanish. Panicking in the pitch-black hallway, the father desperately grabs onto Haoming's leg to avoid being alone. The two scramble around in the dark, completely overwhelmed by the unexpected blackout. A beam of light hits a decorative keepsake on a shelf, causing a fresh wave of panic for the two men. Haoming rushes to cover the object with a cloth while the father hides in the distance, begging him not to stay too far away. Suddenly, a hand reaches out from the shadows and pulls Haoming toward the side of the room. It is Sheng, who signals for him to stay quiet while they hide together from her father. Father bursts into the room with a flashlight, desperately searching for any sign of the kid. Looking completely frantic and disheveled, he shouts out threats to find and confront them. Sheng and Haoming crouch low behind the sofa, panicking as they hear the heavy footsteps approaching. Haoming quickly tosses a large blanket over Sheng to keep her hidden from view. He leans in to reassure her, promising to provide a distraction while she stays out of sight. Haoming stands up with a forced smile, telling father he's going to find a flashlight to help. A small electric lantern hums on the table, casting a dim glow across the room. Father sits down gloomily and insists that Haoming call the police immediately. He grabs Haoming's collar in a fit of rage, demanding that authorities be brought in to find his daughter. In his state of hysteria, father begins imagining several worst-case scenarios involving Sheng's disappearance. Haoming tries to hold him back and settle him down, suggesting she probably just went for a walk. He points to himself while jokingly suggesting she might just be visiting a close friend. Father snaps back at him, frustrated and confused about how the boy could be so certain. He turns away with a heavy sigh, admitting that he feels like a stranger to his own daughter. Hidden under the covers next to a plastic skeleton, Sheng listens to her father's honest confession. Father takes a seat and reflects on how he used to discourage her interest in horror stories. Peeking out from the blanket, Sheng begins to realize the true source of her father's past actions. Haoming observes the man's somber expression, noting that father is simply bad at expressing his feelings. Father turns to Haoming with a look of vulnerability, asking for help in understanding who his daughter has become. Seeing an opportunity to mend their relationship, Haoming looks back with a look of deep resolve. Haoming suddenly jumps up and offers to show father the works of Sheng's favorite author. Sheng's eyes widen in absolute shock from beneath her hiding spot. While Haoming shows the man some digital novels, Sheng emerges from the shadows to protest. Father stares intently at the screen, surprised to finally see what his daughter enjoys. Haoming makes a quick move to usher the blanket-covered Sheng into another room. Once they are alone, Sheng confronts Haoming for revealing her secret hobbies to her dad. Haoming argues that this is the best way for her father to actually get to know her. Despite his fear, father sits in the dark and bravely begins reading the horror fiction. The two of them watch from the doorway as father pushes through his discomfort for his daughter's sake. Sheng watches her father's dramatic reactions as he spends the night reading her favorite stories. A sudden, loud ringing sound startles everyone in the quiet room. Panicking, Sheng trips over her own feet and accidentally drops her mobile phone. The phone hits the floor with a loud clatter, causing father to jump in surprise. Haoming reaches out to steady Sheng and the decorative props as they tumble together. Father stares toward the source of the noise with a look of pure confusion. On the floor, the phone continues to light up and ring with an incoming call from mom. Father demands to know why Sheng is hiding there while she scrambles on the floor to reach her ringing phone. She quickly picks up the device, seeing a call coming in from her mother. The tension freezes the room as Sheng answers the video call, revealing her mother wearing a face mask on the screen. Her mother questions the darkness of the room, prompting father to step forward and reveal that he is right there with her. Mom laughs and gloats, mentioning how much father had been nagging about what to bring for his daughter before his visit. Haoming awkwardly whispers for the pair to move to the sofa and chat while the silence becomes unbearable. On the screen, mom jokingly pinches toward father, telling him not to stay too long so Sheng can get back to her studies. Once the call ends, father and Sheng sit together in a heavy, gloomy silence. Haoming watches them from a distance, wondering why the mood has become even more depressed after the call. Father finally realizes that Sheng never actually left and has been in the house the entire time. Haoming breaks into a nervous sweat as father processes the fact that he was lied to. Father realizes his dignity is completely gone after the private admissions he made while thinking his daughter was absent. Sheng sincerely apologizes for eavesdropping and explains that she never intended to pull away from him. A flashback shows a younger Sheng being scolded by her father for reading horror novels instead of studying for exams. Another memory reveals her mother explaining that father was actually just terrified of the scary book covers. Back in the present, Sheng explains she only kept her hobby a secret to avoid scaring him further. She admits that all the frightening items found in the house actually belong to her. Father stares in shock as she reveals she is the horror author he was just starting to read. She clarifies that Haoming was unaware of her presence, and that she only used the space to meet her writing deadlines. After hearing the truth, father offers a blunt apology to Haoming for his earlier misunderstandings. Sheng tells her father how grateful she is that he tried to face his fears for her sake. Father is visibly moved to tears by his daughter's heartfelt confession. He admits he only ever wanted her to be happy and apologizes for his past behavior. The two finally agree to make up, sitting together peacefully by the light of a lantern. Haoming watches the scene from the shadows, feeling incredibly emotional over the family's reconciliation. Father decides it's time for them to head home so they don't bother Haoming any longer. Haoming tries to act tough, claiming he isn't scared to be left alone during the blackout. As the pair heads for the exit, Sheng waves a final goodbye to her friend. Haoming's bravado immediately vanishes as he lunges forward to grab them, terrified of the dark. He hysterically begs them not to leave him alone in the house until the power comes back on. The atmosphere in the room remains tense as the trio lies awake in silence, unable to find comfort in the darkness. Haoming turns to his phone, texting his friend Ji about the awkward situation of sharing a room with his potential in-laws. His friend only mocks him for the predicament, leaving Haoming more frustrated than before. A plan is hatched as Ji offers a suggestion to save Haoming from the social torture of the evening. Haoming suggests a trip to an escape room to break the ice and ease the tension. Father enthusiastically agrees, thinking it's a perfect way to bond and improve their relationship. Sheng warns them that these places are designed to be genuinely terrifying, much like a haunted house. The sudden realization of the horror theme sends a wave of nervousness through both men. Determined to prove his bravery, Father insists that they all go together to show he isn't a coward. Sheng looks on with extreme doubt while Haoming begins to regret his own suggestion. They arrive at a horror attraction called Scream Space, filled with skull decorations and creepy lighting. Father puts on a brave face, telling Sheng to hide behind him if she gets scared. The set is designed with unsettling details and fake handprints to set a horrifying mood. The group cautiously enters the dark area, using a single flashlight to guide their way through the dim environment. Something unseen brushes against Haoming's face, triggering an immediate panic. Both men erupt into high-pitched screams at the slightest unexpected sensation. Haoming clings to Sheng in a total state of hysteria, convinced something from above touched him. It turns out the ghostly touch was just harmless strips of cloth hanging from the ceiling. Father tries to salvage his ego by mocking Haoming's cowardice, despite his own obvious trembling. A staff member dressed as a ghost spots the group and recognizes them immediately. She decides to give them a personalized, extra scary welcome to the attraction on behalf of her friend. A pale hand reaches out from the darkness and firmly grabs Haoming's shoulder. Haoming stops dead in his tracks, his face twisting with pure terror as he feels the touch. Both men stand frozen like statues, staring into the dark as their courage completely evaporates. The ghost performer reveals herself with a wide, menacing grin right in front of them. The trio stands paralyzed before the creepy figure in the flickering light. Sheng tries to navigate the corridor as more footsteps echo through the hall. A sudden fright sends Sheng reeling as the chaos of the attraction intensifies. Haoming is so terrified that he hides his face deep inside his hoodie, completely unable to process the fear. Pure mayhem breaks out as the group scrambles blindly to find the exit. They finally burst through a door and collapse against the wall, gasping for air. After catching her breath, Sheng looks around and realizes that Haoming is missing. Haoming reappears in a panic, having accidentally pulled his hoodie over his head while trying to escape the curse. Father retreats in absolute terror, convinced that his companion has lost his head. Haoming struggles blindly with his hoodie stuck over his face, while Sheng watches from the floor. Haoming's head finally pops out of the fabric, leaving him stunned and confused. He immediately lets out a blood-curdling scream at the sight in front of him. Sheng stares back with a terrifyingly calm expression, asking what his problem is. As Haoming tries to bolt, she quickly grabs the back of his shirt to keep him grounded. She places a hand on his face to snap him out of it, identifying herself to the panicked swimmer. Haoming collapses to the floor to catch his breath, admitting he was completely losing it. The two realize they are alone and begin searching for where the father disappeared to. Elsewhere, Father is trapped behind a metal gate, trembling as he reads a sign telling him to wait for rescue. A bright spotlight hits his cage as he screams in confusion about his location. He desperately calls out for Sheng and Haoming to save him from the dark. Two ominous figures approach the bars and tell him not to be afraid. Creepy performers with scarred faces and fangs peer in at the terrified man, laughing at his misery. Back in the main area, the duo hears distant screaming echoing through the facility. Sheng finds a hidden tunnel and uses her flashlight to investigate the source of the noise. She suggests going in alone and tells Haoming to stay put. Haoming immediately grabs her sleeve, refusing to be left behind in the dark. He insists on going together, claiming he needs to protect her while admitting he's too scared to stay solo. Sheng gives a small, pleased smile at his sudden show of solidarity. Haoming takes her hand firmly, warning her not to wander off. They enter a dark corridor lined with creepy masks as his heart starts pounding. The two walk through the hallway hand in hand, though Haoming is clearly the more nervous one. Haoming wonders if his racing heart is a sign of a crush, while Sheng is busy brainstorming horror story ideas. He blushes furiously as they navigate the eerie atmosphere together. Sheng reaches out to inspect one of the unsettling masks hanging on the wall. She notes the suspicious silence of the path, expecting a major jump scare soon. A sudden shout pierces the darkness, breaking the quiet tension. Haoming tenses up immediately, scanning the area for the source of the sound. A long-haired ghost performer appears between them, complaining about her foot being stepped on. Haoming panics and screams while Sheng looks on with total indifference. In a fit of terror, Haoming grabs her arm and prepares to run. He sprints down the hallway at full speed, shouting for Sheng to follow him. Sheng stands completely still, watching him disappear while realizing she's been left behind. A hand presses firmly against a cold wall. Haoming whips around in a sudden panic. He realizes with a shock that he's been dragging a performer instead of Sheng. Terrified, he breaks into a full sprint to get away from the ghost. He runs through the dark halls, feeling completely abandoned and frightened. A hand suddenly grabs his sleeve, making him jump. It turns out to be Sheng, who is confused about where he's been. Haoming looks absolutely exhausted and starts to tear up. Overcome with relief, he pulls Sheng into a tight, desperate hug. He tearfully explains that he thought the performer was her and fled in fear. Sheng is left stunned by his intense reaction. The lights finally turn on as an announcement directs them to the safety exit. Haoming finally begins to calm down now that the ordeal is over. Meanwhile, the father is in visible agony, clutching his lower back. Back in the lounge, the father lies on the sofa while the group worries about his injury. Haoming quickly reaches for his phone to call for emergency services. The father insists it's just a sprain and wants to go home instead of a hospital. Sheng argues that he shouldn't move and decides to find some ointment. As Haoming offers help, Jang Yun approaches the group. She mentions she knows a local pharmacy owner with medical experience. The two girls walk through the mall in search of the medical shop. Jang Yun leads the way, explaining that the old doctor is highly skilled. She offers words of encouragement, telling Sheng not to worry about her dad. Sheng wonders if the friendly girl is trying to strike up a friendship. Jang Yun is secretly thrilled to be spending time with her favorite author. She celebrates internally, hoping this leads to a real friendship. Jang Yun tries to learn more about Sheng's hobbies and shopping habits. She enthusiastically recommends a local hair salon she frequently visits. Jang Yun grabs Sheng's hands, making her promise to visit the salon together. Sheng is taken aback by the sudden display of affection. They finally spot the Hao pharmacy and call out to the doctor inside. The group rushes the doctor back to the lounge to check on the injury. The doctor instructs everyone to keep an ice pack on the father's back. Haoming loses his footing on a wet patch on the floor. He flails wildly, accidentally launching the cold pack into the air. The ice pack hits the doctor square in the face with a loud thud. The doctor, sporting a bruised face and broken glasses from the previous incident, advises that the patient's back will be fine with rest and ointment. Sheng prepares to help her father while Jang Yun offers a sincere apology to the injured medic. As the doctor finishes his house call, Haoming stands by holding a mop, looking ready to help. Haoming suddenly pops into the frame with high energy, offering to personally escort the doctor out. Terrified of another accidental injury, the doctor bolts for the exit as fast as possible to escape Haoming's presence. The group watches the door in stunned silence, puzzled by the doctor's extremely hasty departure. Father declares that he is ready to go home, though Haoming immediately offers to carry the man himself. The next day, a social media post shows a group photo from the haunted house trip, documenting the chaotic outing. Haoming gazes at the picture on his phone, feeling happy to finally have a photo together with Sheng. Over at the pool, the other swimmers gossip about a rival training intensely to redeem himself against Haoming in the next match. Haoming remains completely oblivious to the rising tension as he walks down the street with a cheerful skip. He arrives at a door and delivers a firm series of knocks, hoping to check in on the family. Haoming greets whoever answers with a big smile, asking if the father needs a back massage. Jang Yun opens the door and politely declines, explaining she has already taught Sheng the necessary care techniques. The following day, Haoming returns and knocks on the door once again. He shows up with a bag full of fresh groceries, eager to help prepare a meal for everyone. Jang Yun meets him at the door again, informing him that she has already finished the cooking for the day. 2 days later, the persistent swimmer returns to the same door to try his luck one more time. Haoming stands in the hallway with a hopeful expression, waiting for a chance to see his friend. Jang Yun opens the door yet again, looking slightly weary of the frequent visits. She shushes him and explains that Sheng is currently busy writing her novel and cannot be disturbed. After Haoming leaves, Jang Yun stands by the door and contemplates the boy's obvious persistence. Sheng eventually comes out to see who was at the door, and Jang Yun casually mentions Haoming just stopped by to say hello. In the bedroom, father rests comfortably, feeling touched by how much Jang Yun has stepped up to help them during his recovery. The next day, someone presses the elevator button as the family prepares for a departure. Haoming reflects on how many days it has been since he last got to see Sheng in person. He walks down the hall carrying tickets for the upcoming regional competition, hoping to hand-deliver them. He finally spots Sheng and Jang Yun in the hallway and is instantly filled with excitement. Sheng hears someone approaching and turns around to see who is calling her name. Unable to contain his joy, Haoming launches into a massive, enthusiastic leap toward her. A hand suddenly reaches out and grabs Haoming by the back of his shirt to halt his flight. Father successfully intercepts the boy midair, scolding him for his reckless behavior while Sheng checks her phone. Downstairs, the group gathers by the curb as father prepares to take a taxi back home. He gives a warm, knowing smile, content to see his daughter surrounded by supportive friends. As the trio starts bickering and talking, father leaves with a sense of peace, knowing Yu Sheng is no longer alone. After the car pulls away, the three of them head back toward the building while Haoming tries to keep up with the girls. Jang Yun turns her attention to Haoming as they walk together through the park. With a playful and knowing smirk, Jang Yun directly asks Haoming if he has romantic feelings for Yu Sheng. Jang Yun confronts Haoming, noting how he has been acting strange whenever Yu Sheng is around. Haoming attempts to explain that seeing Yu Sheng with a new friend makes him feel like he is being replaced. He admits to feeling a bit lonely now that their dynamic as neighbors has changed. Jang Yun listens with a knowing smile, seeing right through his flimsy excuses. She directly calls him out for being jealous, which causes him to freeze up in total tension. Laughing, she pats him on the back and says she completely understands his affection for her friend. Jang Yun looks at him warmly, acknowledging that it is natural to like someone as great as Yu Sheng. She cheers him on, admitting that she also thinks highly of the girl they are talking about. Haoming is left completely flustered, begging her not to say such embarrassing things out loud. Later, Haoming is lost in thought while brushing his teeth, wondering if these feelings are actually love. He remains so distracted during his training session that his teammate notices he is completely frozen on the blocks. He walks home with competition tickets in his pocket, still feeling too nervous to hand them over. He spots Yu Sheng at the mailboxes and hesitates, his heart racing at the sudden chance encounter. Despite his intense nerves, he tells himself to stay calm and act normal so he can finally give her the tickets. Yu Sheng notices him and asks if he is just getting back, catching him off guard. He tries to maintain a serious, cool expression while internally panicking about how to start the conversation. His hand grips the tickets tightly in his pocket as he struggles to find the right words to say. Overwhelmed by the pressure, he suddenly shouts that he is going in first and dashes away, leaving her totally confused. Back in their room, Yu Sheng tells Jang Yun about how strangely Haoming has been acting lately. She explains that even though he is a close neighbor, his behavior today was completely out of character. Jang Yun realizes his awkwardness is likely due to their previous conversation and feels a bit bad for the guy. Haoming holds his competition ticket outside, feeling discouraged by his own inability to talk to her. He practices the simple invitation in his head, but feels too lame to actually go through with it. A hand reaches out and catches the paper just as it is about to fall. Haoming turns around in shock, realizing that Yu Sheng has found him. Yu Sheng stands before him with the invitation in hand, revealing that Jang Yun already told her everything. Haoming panics and blushes intensely, demanding to know what his friend told Yu Sheng about him. Yu Sheng holds up a ticket and explains that Jang Yun mentioned his plan to invite her to the upcoming competition. Relieved that his crush wasn't explicitly revealed, Haoming awkwardly scratches his head and admits he was worried over nothing. He stammers out his concerns about the crowded venue, but his blush betrays his underlying nerves. Yu Sheng smiles warmly and encourages the swimmer to do his absolute best in the match. Overwhelmed by her support, Haoming's face turns bright red as he processes the encouragement. He raises his arms in a surge of sudden energy, shouting his resolve to win while Yu Sheng tries to quiet him down in the quiet night. The scene shifts to the swimming pool, where the high-stakes competition is officially underway. In the stands, Yu Sheng and Jang Yun watch the intense race with anticipation. Haoming dives into the lane, pushing himself to keep pace with his fierce rival. Watching from the sidelines, Yu Sheng clasps her hands together and feels a wave of anxiety for him. The announcer declares Haoming the winner, and he emerges from the pool with a triumphant smile. Jang Yun cheers wildly for his success, while Yu Sheng looks on with a proud and relieved expression. Yu Sheng reflects on how motivating it was to witness such a passionate performance. Now standing on the podium with a gold medal, Haoming searches the crowd to see if Yu Sheng is watching him. He celebrates his first-place victory alongside his teammate, who took second place in the heat. Still in his gear, Haoming approaches Yu Sheng with an expectant look, silently hoping for her approval. Yu Sheng reaches out and gives him a congratulatory pat on the head, causing his heart to race. The gesture leaves Haoming completely dazed and flustered by the close interaction. His rival approaches to acknowledge the win and promises a rematch at the national level. Haoming accepts the challenge with a serious nod, still wearing his No.1 medal. Jang Yun decides to head out with her brother, intentionally giving the pair some space to themselves. Haoming waves a shaky goodbye as the siblings depart, leaving him alone with his crush. From a distance, two other observers watch the duo interacting in the stands. They decide not to interrupt, choosing to wait for a better time to greet him. Later that evening, beautiful paper lanterns float down the river to mark the festival night. Haoming and Yu Sheng walk side by side through the festive atmosphere, enjoying the scenery. He tells her how happy he is to be spending the special day with her. Yu Sheng is surprised, admitting she didn't think he was the type to care about such festivals. Haoming starts to work up the courage to confess his feelings, but Yu Sheng suddenly mentions it's the Hungry Ghost Festival. The romantic mood is instantly shattered as Haoming stares at her in complete disbelief. He stands frozen in shock, unable to believe she mistook the romantic holiday for a spooky one. The night ends with the glowing lanterns taking on a much more eerie vibe than he intended. Haoming realizes too late that he got the date wrong, mistaking the romantic holiday for a much spookier festival. He places a hand on Yu Sheng's shoulder, trying to keep his composure despite the creeping dread. Suddenly overwhelmed by fear, Haoming spins Yusheng around and insists they need to hurry home immediately. He scurries away while pulling Yusheng along, convinced that ghosts are lurking around every corner. Haoming points in terror at a girl on a swing, mistaking her for a floating spirit, while Yusheng remains completely unfazed. He screams in fright at a silhouette he thinks is a reaper, though Yusheng clarifies it is just a man selling kites. Pointing frantically at the sky, he mistakes harmless sky lanterns for something far more sinister. Yusheng looks at her friend with genuine concern, asking if he is actually doing okay. Haoming begins to sweat and tremble, feeling the weight of his own vivid imagination. He collapses to the ground in a heap of despair, surrounded by imaginary demons, while Yusheng tells him he is just seeing things. Looking up with a drained expression, he complains that his energy is being completely sucked out. Haoming reaches out a weak hand, dramatically claiming that he might not be able to make it home. He suddenly panics and screams that Yusheng has been taken, even though she is standing right behind him. To calm him down, Yusheng pulls out a single green leaf and offers it to him. Haoming takes a sniff of the pomelo leaf as she explains it is meant to ward off evil spirits. Following her instructions, he holds the leaf between his palms with a serious and focused expression. Yusheng leads him through a protective chant intended to clear his mind of any lingering worries. She strikes a playful pose, shouting for all the evil spirits to stay away. Yusheng then presses her hands against Haoming's chest to complete the warding ritual. Haoming's heart begins to race at the sudden proximity, and he becomes flustered by her touch. Yusheng asks if the treatment worked while Haoming stands there with a bright red face and a pounding heart. He leans back, completely overwhelmed by what he considers to be an incredibly cute spell. Yusheng explains that her grandmother taught her this little trick when she was a child. When she tries to take the leaf back to discard it, Haoming quickly grabs her arm to stop her. He shouts with a blush that the ritual worked wonders and he feels much better. Yusheng stares at him with a skeptical look, wondering how he recovered so quickly. Haoming poses dramatically, claiming that his body finally feels completely clean. He gazes at the pomelo leaf with pure devotion, treating it like a life-saving treasure. Feeling bold again, Haoming throws his arms out and declares that the path ahead looks incredibly bright. Yusheng can only stare, realizing how incredibly simple-minded her friend can be. Haoming starts walking with a cheerful skip, no longer any rush to get home. He turns back to her with a smile, stating that he wants to spend the rest of the day by her side. He holds his lucky charm high in the air, feeling invincible as long as he has the leaf. Their peaceful moment is interrupted by a sudden, loud splashing sound coming from the water. A strange doll floats on the surface, making eerie noises and calling out for help. Haoming's newfound courage instantly vanishes as he trembles in fear of the drowning ghost. He quickly hides behind Yusheng and holds up his pomelo leaf, shouting for the spirit to stay away. Yusheng watches with a look of pure disbelief as Haoming continues his superstitious antics. Haoming admits that despite being a swimmer, his biggest fear is encountering spirits in the water. He holds up a single leaf with total seriousness, leaving Yusheng completely baffled by his logic. Haoming pulls her along, imagining that he'd need an entire tree to feel truly safe from the supernatural. Their walk is interrupted by a frantic woman shouting for help from the nearby railing. The duo turns in alarm as the woman begs someone to save her daughter who fell into the river. A young girl is seen struggling and splashing desperately in the deep water. Without a second thought, Haoming ditches his bag and sprints toward the edge to help. He takes a clean dive into the water, putting his swimming skills to the ultimate test. Yusheng watches from the bank with a mix of worry and admiration as he swims toward the child. Haoming reaches the girl just in time and grabs hold of her arm to keep her head above the surface. He pulls the terrified child into a secure hold while navigating the dark water. Moments later, he climbs back up and safely returns the girl to her crying mother. The mother and daughter reunite while Haoming stands back, looking completely drained from the effort. Yusheng notices something is off when she sees Haoming starting to tremble uncontrollably. He is visibly shaking and breaking out in a cold sweat despite the successful rescue. Haoming slumps onto the pavement as Yusheng asks if he's feeling alright. He recalls a traumatic memory from the 6th grade when he spotted a child drowning in a reservoir. In the flashback, a younger Haoming struggled to save the other boy who was thrashing wildly in panic. He remembers being pulled out by adults and the crushing guilt of not being able to save the other child himself. Hearing his story, Yusheng clenches her fist, feeling the weight of the trauma he's been carrying. The two sit quietly on the steps as Haoming admits he felt he only made things worse back then. Yusheng delivers a sudden chop to his head to break him out of his negative spiral. She tells him to look at the reality of the situation instead of dwelling on the past. She points to the little girl laughing with her mother, proving that his actions saved a life today. Yusheng gives him a warm, encouraging smile that clearly catches him off guard. She explains that using past mistakes to improve oneself is a rare and admirable quality. The two share a quiet, meaningful moment as the tension from the rescue finally fades. They both end up blushing slightly as Yusheng tells him to stop blaming himself for things he couldn't control. Haoming looks away with a deep blush, feeling a sense of relief and gratitude toward her. They spend the rest of the evening sitting together under the stars, enjoying each other's company. A sudden sneeze breaks the silence, and Yusheng decides it's time for them to head home. The next morning, Haoming finds himself struggling to walk on shaky, unstable legs. He stumbles around his room, feeling completely drained and physically weak. Clutching his forehead, he realizes that the cold water from the night before has finally caught up to him. With a bright red face and a high fever, he groans about the bad luck of the festival. Sheng is startled awake by loud banging and Haoming calling her name from outside. She opens the door only to find a delirious Haoming collapsing right in front of her. Seeing his flushed face, she checks his forehead and realizes he's burning up with a fever. Haoming starts babbling about curses while Sheng struggles to haul him back to his room. He stubbornly resists the help, demanding traditional keepsakes instead of actual medicine. Sheng returns with a damp cloth and a glass of water to treat his condition. The fever-stricken boy refuses the water, insisting on his superstitious charms. Sheng's patience begins to wear thin as her annoyance level starts to climb. She silences his complaints by slapping the wet towel right onto his forehead. After checking the thermometer, she notes his high temperature and decides he needs a change of clothes. She heads to his wardrobe to find something dry for him to wear. Haoming falls off the bed in a daze, accusing her of looking through his things. His eyes are glazed over as he continues to hallucinate from the intense heat. Sheng tries to help him change out of his sweat-soaked shirt to prevent his fever from worsening. In his delirious state, Haoming thinks he's dreaming and points a finger at her for being too bold. He pushes her away with a sudden burst of strength, sending her tumbling onto the floor. Sheng is now officially fed up with his stubborn and nonsensical behavior. She resorts to force-feeding him the medicine while he tries to block his mouth. He manages to knock the cup out of her hand, sending the liquid flying everywhere. Seeing the mess on the floor, Sheng's anger finally reaches its absolute boiling point. She wraps him up tightly in his blanket like a cocoon to keep him from moving. The immobilized boy continues to protest, but he can't move an inch. Later, Haoming wakes up feeling groggy and thinks he just survived a terrible nightmare. His stomach growls loudly, and he wonders if there is any food left in the house. He spots a bowl of rice porridge on the table and feels deeply touched by the kind gesture. Sheng walks in carrying a bowl, planning to reheat the food for him. She is shocked to see him already chugging the cold porridge straight from the container. She scolds him for eating her leftovers and warns him that cold food might make him sick again. Haoming realizes he just shared a meal and blushes intensely at the thought. His face turns bright red as he celebrates his perceived luck, while Sheng worries for his health. A sudden loud knocking at the door interrupts their moment, signaling an unexpected visitor. Haoming peeks out from his room to see who could be visiting so early in the morning. A cheerful woman with short hair greets him warmly, revealing she hasn't seen him in a long time. Haoming is completely stunned to see Sissy standing right at his doorstep. Sissy surprises Haoming and Sheng at the door, explaining that Haoming's mother sent her to visit. She immediately notices the messy state of the room and begins commenting on the clutter. Sissy explains her mission is to keep an eye on Haoming and ensure he keeps his living space clean. Her gaze narrows as she realizes she recognizes Sheng from a previous encounter. Haoming looks on nervously, while Sissy mentions that his mother told her about his university acceptance. Sissy points an accusing finger, demanding to know if the girl in the room is his girlfriend. Haoming quickly clarifies that Sheng is just a helpful neighbor who came over to look after him. Sissy remains silent for a moment, her expression unreadable as she processes the explanation. A bright burst of light emphasizes Sissy's sudden shift back to a cheerful, energetic demeanor. She thanks Sheng for her help, noting that Haoming is usually very sensitive and prone to lashing out when he's sick. Sissy questions why they ordered takeout, prompting Sheng to explain that she bought it for him. Sheng stands silently, feeling a heavy sense of awkwardness in the current atmosphere. Sissy offers to cook a nutritious meal, which makes Sheng feel increasingly out of place. Sheng's phone vibrates in her pocket, providing a timely distraction from the uncomfortable situation. She checks her device and announces that she needs to step away to answer an important text. Sissy encourages her to leave if she's busy, happily taking over the caretaking duties herself. Sissy pushes Sheng toward the door while Haoming tries to thank her for her help one last time. Once outside, Sheng sees a message from her editor about a potential film adaptation for her novel. Despite the professional success, Sheng walks away feeling a bit lost and confused by the recent events. Zheng Yun suddenly appears, excitedly congratulating Sheng on the big news from the publisher. Sheng looks conflicted, unsure how to share her complicated feelings regarding Haoming with her friend. Zheng Yun notices the unhappy look on Sheng's face and asks if something is wrong. Zheng Yun wants to go celebrate with Haoming, but Sheng holds her back to stop her. Sheng explains that Haoming is sick and currently has a visitor catching up with him. Zheng Yun's intuition flares up as she realizes the visitor is likely another girl competing for attention. Zheng Yun decides they should just celebrate between the two of them instead. She promises to take Sheng to a special place to help clear her mind and improve her mood. The two friends arrive at a local establishment called the Salted Fish Hair Salon. Zheng Yun introduces a stylish stylist named Tony and asks for a stunning makeover for her friend. Tony prepares his tools and gets ready to work his magic on Sheng's appearance. Tony drapes a salon cape over Sheng, suggesting a short, curly look would suit her perfectly. Zheng Yun snaps a photo while Sheng expresses concern about the proposed teddy bear hairstyle. Back at the apartment, Haoming receives a text from Zheng Yun showing Sheng at the salon. Haoming grows jealous while Sissy continues to talk about her excitement for the upcoming school year. The phone continues to beep as more updates from the salon trip come through. Sissy smiles warmly at Haoming, expressing her desire to always be by his side. Haoming panics as he imagines Sheng with an extremely frizzy and unflattering perm. He immediately starts typing a message, desperately telling Sheng not to go through with the new hairstyle. Haoming bursts into the salon, panicking about the state of Sheng's hair. He stops dead in his tracks, his eyes wide with shock. Sheng turns around, revealing her new wavy hairstyle and elegant dress. Haoming is completely stunned and begins to blush at the sight of her transformation. He approaches her, struggling to find the right words to describe how she looks. Sheng becomes self-conscious and asks if the new look is too weird. Haoming quickly reassures her, shouting that she looks incredibly pretty and almost unrecognizable. Sheng smiles, feeling relieved and happy to hear his genuine praise. Tony the stylist and Jang Yun watch the scene from the background, clearly amused by the duo's interaction. Haoming turns to Tony, impressed by the professional work done on Sheng's hair. Tony jokingly tells him that paying the bill is the best way to show his gratitude. The group prepares to leave the salon as Jang Yun leads the way out. Jang Yun insists on treating everyone to a big dinner to celebrate Sheng's recent success. She mentions her gold membership card as they arrive at the restaurant. Nearby, a fan of the author overhears her name and reacts with intense interest. The fan, currently getting his own hair done, demands to know who mentioned his favorite idol. He jumps out of his chair, determined to follow the group as they head out. Haoming's phone rings incessantly as the group walks through the mall, while a mysterious figure watches them from behind a pillar. Haoming checks his phone and explains that a junior from his swimming team wants to visit. The group arrives at a restaurant called Salted Fish Hot Pot. Jang Yun and Sheng look on with curiosity as Haoming's guest finally arrives. Haoming introduces Li Sisi, a junior who is just starting at their college. The group sits down for dinner while Haoming explains he is helping Sisi settle into the new town. Jang Yun puts on a polite smile while sizing up the new arrival. Sisi smiles back, though the tension between the two women is immediately palpable. A mental clash of wills erupts between Jang Yun and Sissy, as they maintain a fake friendly demeanor. Sheng feels the heavy atmosphere and wonders why the mood has become so intense. Both Sheng and Haoming reach for the chopsticks at the exact same time. Haoming blushes and offers to get the utensils for her. Sissy watches the interaction closely, her expression turning serious. Haoming hands the chopsticks to Sheng, leaving both of them feeling flustered. Sissy asks Haoming if they should order their usual meal, trying to highlight their past connection. Jang Yun scoffs at the suggestion, noting that everyone has different tastes and should order separately. Sheng stands up to head to the sauce station, leaving the others at the table. Haoming watches her go, his eyes trailing her every move. Jang Yun confronts Haoming, asking why he hasn't confessed his feelings to Sheng yet. Sheng stands by the buffet, looking elegant in her new look while Jang Yun warns Haoming that someone else might win her over if he keeps hesitating. Haoming struggles to find the right words as his anxiety begins to peak. He worries that someone might actually try to take Sheng away from him. Jang Yun points out a potential rival, sending Haoming into a state of pure panic. He watches as a stylish stranger approaches Sheng to ask a simple question. Haoming's imagination runs wild, picturing the two of them hitting it off and starting a relationship. The nightmare escalates as he envisions them walking down the aisle together. He snaps back to reality and rushes over just as the stranger asks about a specific author. Haoming quickly puts himself between Sheng and the newcomer to keep him at a distance. He stares the guy down and declares that he will never give her up to anyone else. Sheng is left completely stunned and blushing by his sudden, intense outburst. While Haoming remains furious, the stranger looks totally confused by the unprovoked confrontation. Assuming they are already a couple, the blonde guy decides it's best to just walk away. He bids them farewell while making a stinging comment about Haoming's messy appearance. Haoming finally realizes he is standing in public with uncombed hair and wearing his pajamas. Sheng is left wondering about the true meaning behind Haoming's protective behavior. Realizing how embarrassing he looks, Haoming breaks down in comical tears. Sheng tries to reassure him, telling him not to worry about the awkward situation. The group finishes their meal in a heavy, uncomfortable silence. The friends part ways for the night, leaving Haoming still lost in his own thoughts. Sheng stays close to Haoming as they start their walk back. Haoming remains deeply regretful about his choice of attire for the evening. The next day arrives at the campus as the school welcomes a new batch of freshmen. Jang Yun greets Sheng, who is hiding her new hairstyle under a large sun hat. Sheng admits she feels too exposed with her new look, but Jang Yun insists she looks great. She remains pensive, wondering if Saizi has actually joined the swimming team. Over at the gym, the swimming club begins the formal introduction of its newest members. Sissy and another ambitious student announce their arrival to the rest of the squad. Haoming and his teammates look on, ready to start the new season together. Jang Yun and Sheng arrive at their meeting spot to find their third thesis partner. A mysterious guy stands with his back turned, carefully grooming his hair. The girls are instantly shocked when they recognize the person standing before them. The stylish stranger from the night before, Li Yi, reveals he is their new academic teammate. The professor instructs the students to check the group chat for thesis references and submit their chosen topics after a group discussion. Jang Yun and Sheng review potential subjects on their laptops, considering a project focused on cultural taboos. Li Yi suddenly chimes in, expressing his interest in the same topic, and insisting they move forward with it. The girls stare in disbelief as they notice their new partner's strange behavior during the meeting. Lai explains the importance of skincare while wearing a facial mask right in the middle of their study session. Zheng Yun questions if he is a stalker after seeing him at the restaurant, but he claims his presence in their class is just a coincidence. He takes a moment to closely analyze the girls' appearances from a critical perspective. After dismissing others as rugged, he condescendingly tells the pair that their looks are at least tolerable to be around. A sharp look in his eyes reveals he has a hidden agenda for joining their specific group. While the girls label him a total weirdo, Lei Yi is secretly determined to uncover the identity of the person known as Fish. Over at the pool, the swim team is impressed by the performance of the incoming freshmen during practice. The team captains discuss recruiting a standout swimmer named Lin Yu for the upcoming interschool matches. They consider adding the talented athlete to the mixed medley relay team to boost their chances of winning. One of the swimmers gets excited about the prospect of showing off and finally getting a girlfriend before graduation. The conversation shifts to Yu Sheng, causing Haoming to turn bright red as his friends tease him about his feelings. His teammates warn him that he will lose his chance if he doesn't work up the courage to confess soon. Overwhelmed by the pressure and his own insecurity, Haoming's legs give out beneath him. He drops to his knees in despair, admitting he has no idea how to approach the girl he likes. Seeing his friend in distress, the red-haired swimmer decides it is time to step in and help orchestrate a plan. On a sweltering afternoon, the wingman kicks off the operation by calling out to Yu Sheng. However, Li Yi is already there, shielding the girls from the sun with an umbrella and offering to take them to lunch. The wingman tries to act natural and stick to the plan despite the unexpected competition. He starts with a friendly compliment about her new haircut to keep her from suspecting a setup. Li Yi watches with an intense, intimidating glare as the interaction unfolds. The friend tells the girls to wait just a moment longer, because Haoming is finally on his way. Yu Sheng looks up in surprise as someone suddenly gets very close to her. Before Haoming can arrive, Li Yi grabs Yu Sheng's arm and pulls her toward him under the umbrella. He catches everyone off guard by shouting that he likes her and calling her his idol. Yu Sheng's eyes widen in absolute shock at the sudden and public declaration of affection. The wingman and Zheng Yun can only watch in horror as their carefully laid plans fall apart. Haoming finally appears in the distance, only to witness the man he dislikes confessing to the girl he loves. Holding a beautiful bouquet of flowers for his own confession, a heartbroken Haoming stands frozen in tears. Haoming stands in shock as he witnesses his chance at a first love slip away. Yu Sheng and her companion notice the awkward timing of the encounter. Still holding his flowers, Haoming is stunned to realize his rival also attends the same school. The confrontation leaves Haoming visibly distressed and shivering from the pressure. Overwhelmed by frustration, he runs away in tears while clutching his bouquet. A friend heads toward the gym to share the latest sports news regarding an online match report. She checks her phone to see that the current Asian record ranking has been updated. Haoming is found collapsed on the floor, surrounded by discarded petals and sobbing over his defeat. His friend rushes over in a panic, desperately trying to figure out what went wrong. Haoming laments that his heart has been shattered, just like the petals on the ground. In the locker room, teammates discuss the rumor that a wealthy senior named Lei Yi has made a move. One friend realizes that if the rival dates Yu Sheng, it might actually help her own chances with Haoming. Haoming is struck by the news that his competition is considered a well-dressed and attractive senior. His teammates try to motivate him, urging him not to give up on his feelings. A plan is hatched to give the rival a taste of his own medicine with a new strategy. They decide that Haoming needs to transform into a more refined individual to win Yu Sheng over. Students across campus are shocked when Haoming arrives looking like a completely different person. He struts through the school wearing a formal suit, determined to be the most well-dressed guy around. Yu Sheng and her friend stare in total disbelief at his bizarre wardrobe choice. They find it ridiculous that he is wearing a heavy suit during the middle of a scorching summer. Yu Sheng watches him from a distance, wondering if the recent events have caused him to lose his mind. Later that evening, she knocks on a door to invite him for food as a distraction. Haoming opens the door wearing a bear-themed headband and a facial skincare mask. Yu Sheng is completely taken aback by his extreme new grooming routine. He explains that maintaining his skin is essential to becoming a refined gentleman. Yu Sheng feels confused as he mentions his strict schedule for beauty sleep. He turns down her invitation for a late meal, insisting on staying fit by avoiding food after 6. The next morning, Yu Sheng walks to school after a night of terrifying dreams about the situation. She is startled to find Haoming collapsed face down on the pavement while still wearing his suit. Rushing to his side, she realizes he is suffering from heat stroke due to his heavy clothing. Even in a daze, Haoming refuses to remove the suit because he is determined to outshine his rival. Yu Sheng panics as his energy levels drop dangerously low from the intense heat. She begs him to stop and confesses that she liked him exactly the way he used to be. Haoming instantly recovers his spirit, blushing at the realization that she accepts him as he is. Haoming grabs Yu Sheng's shoulders and asks if she'll fall for him if he returns to his old self. Yu Sheng looks stunned and blushes as she struggles to find the right words to respond to his sudden intensity. A white car screeches to a halt right next to them while they are still on the ground. Lei Yi leans out of the car window with a smirk, offering them a ride so they won't be late for class. Haoming is visibly annoyed by the interruption and immediately tries to decline the offer. Despite his annoyance, Haoming insists on joining if Sheng gets in, though he's still stuck in his uncomfortable suit. Sheng sits quietly in the back seat, looking a bit overwhelmed by the tension. The back seat becomes incredibly cramped as both boys squeeze in on either side of Sheng, leaving the front seat completely empty. Both rivals stubbornly refuse to move to the front, offering ridiculous excuses just to stay right next to her. The car speeds down the road while the petty argument over seat placement continues. Silence falls over the back seat as the two boys glare at each other, while Sheng remains trapped in the middle. Lai Yi breaks the silence by asking Sheng for an autograph, mentioning how much he admires her work. Not wanting to be outdone, Haoming raises his hand and demands an autograph too, fueling the competition. Both boys turn away from each other with a huff, frustrated by the constant one-upping. The car finally pulls up to the entrance of Chengdu University. Li Yi quickly hops out and opens the door for Sheng to show off his refined manners. Haoming realizes he was on the wrong side of the car and scrambles to catch up as Lai Yi opens an umbrella for her. Haoming forces himself under the umbrella with the others, claiming he also needs to protect his skin from the sun. Lai Yi looks disgusted as Haoming squeezes right up against him under the small canopy. A map of the campus shows the different paths the characters must take to reach their respective buildings. Haoming watches from a distance, feeling left out as he heads toward the stadium, while the others walk away together. Another student watches the scene unfold from behind a pillar with a thoughtful expression. At the pool, the swimmers practice their starts while gossip about the trio begins to circulate. Haoming overhears his teammates discussing how close Sheng and Lai Yi seem to be lately. A teammate points out that since Sheng hasn't rejected Lai Yi yet, there must be a spark between them. Haoming stands by the pool looking troubled as he processes the rumors about his rival. Later that evening, Lai Yi drops Sheng off at home and says his goodbyes from the car. Sheng turns around to find Haoming waiting for her outside her house. Haoming has finally ditched the suit for his casual clothes, and Sheng tells him he looks much better this way. Sheng looks surprised when Haoming immediately asks if she was just hanging out with Lai Yi. Haoming's jealousy boils over as he bluntly asks her if she actually has feelings for the wealthy senior. He begins listing all of Lai Yi's advantages, clearly feeling insecure about his own standing. Sheng stares at him, confused as to why he keeps comparing himself to someone else. Haoming finally shouts out that he likes her, and is terrified that Lai Yi is going to steal her away. Sheng's eyes widen in shock as she hears his sudden and honest confession. The sudden confession leaves Sheng and Haoming frozen in a state of absolute shock. Overwhelmed by the moment, Sheng turns beet red and lets out an internal scream of panic. She immediately bolts away, leaving a stunned Haoming shouting for her to wait. Left alone in the quiet night, Haoming stands dejected, realizing his emotional outburst might have ruined everything. The next day at school, Haoming's friend notices his exhausted expression and reminds him to rest up before the big match. When Sheng finally appears, the friend offers a cheerful greeting while a nervous Haoming struggles to act natural. He can't help but blush as he watches her walk past, his heart clearly still racing from the night before. Sheng is just as flustered, quickly looking away to avoid any direct eye contact. The awkward tension is palpable, leaving Haoming's friend completely confused by the strange vibe between the two. Distraught by her cold shoulder, Haoming breaks down in tears, fearing he's been permanently rejected. His friend has to literally shake him to keep him from spiraling into total despair. Meanwhile, in class, Sheng sits in a daze, unable to focus on anything her friends are saying. She hides her face in her hands, replaying the confession over and over while her cheeks burn with embarrassment. Her friends notice her strange behavior and check in to see if she's feeling all right. Sheng tries to play it off as just a lack of sleep, though her frantic gestures suggest otherwise. Later, she and her friends spot the swimming team gathering outside for their upcoming event. The athletes are busy conducting a final roll call before boarding the bus for the competition. Haoming remains lost in thought, his mind clearly occupied by the unresolved tension with Sheng. He stares at his phone, agonizing over what to say to her to fix the situation. Suddenly, Zheng Yin spots him and calls out, bringing both girls over to the team bus. Sheng lingers in the background, blushing furiously as she tries to remain unnoticed. Haoming puts on a brave face and explains the competition schedule at the central stadium. Despite the group setting, his attention is fixed entirely on the quiet girl standing before him. The pressure of the moment causes him to flush with nerves as he searches for the right words. Finally, he manages a bright smile and asks Sheng if she'll be there to cheer him on. The request catches her off guard, leaving her wide-eyed and unable to give a straight answer. An awkward silence falls over the trio as Sheng struggles to process her feelings. The moment is interrupted by a teammate shouting that it's time for the bus to depart. Lai Sissy waves from the vehicle, signaling that they can't wait any longer. Realizing he has to go, Haoming turns back to the girls, the unresolved conversation hanging heavily in the air. He offers a quick wave and a forced smile, heading off to board the bus for the tournament. While Zheng Yin waves back enthusiastically, Sheng remains frozen, her hand barely moving in a dazed farewell. As the bus pulls away, she stares after it, wondering why such a simple goodbye feels so complicated today. Looking out from the window, Haoming is equally conflicted, feeling the distance between them grow as he heads toward his big match. Jang Yun notices that Yu Sheng is acting incredibly strange as they walk together. Yu Sheng frantically waves her hands, insisting that her friend is just overthinking the situation. In her flustered state, Yu Sheng loses track of where she is going and walks straight into a tree. A classmate looks on with a raised eyebrow, while Yu Sheng clutches her head in pain after the collision. Over at the intercollegiate tournament, the swim team gathers with towels after securing a first-place victory. Despite the win, Haoming looks pensive as he wonders if Yu Sheng actually showed up to watch him. High in the stands, Jang Yun cheers at the top of her lungs with a megaphone, while Jang Yun continues to shout names toward the pool. A mortified Yu Sheng tries her best to stay hidden. Haoming begins to walk away from the deck, seemingly unaware that the girls are even in the building. Yu Sheng is caught in a loop of blushing and overthinking, worried about what Haoming will think of her being there. Jang Yun decides it is time for a direct approach and suggests they head to the lounge to meet the team. She grabs Yu Sheng's arm and starts pulling her toward the exit despite her protests. Yu Sheng is struck with panic when she realizes Jang Yun already texted the boys to let them know they arrived. Jang Yun leads the way through the hallway, determined to find the meeting spot. Desperate to escape the awkward encounter, Yu Sheng fakes a stomach ache and claims she needs the bathroom. She quickly ducks away, telling her friend she will be right back after a fake emergency. While feeling guilty about the lie, she admits to herself that she just isn't ready to face Haoming yet. As she steps through a door to hide, she is shocked to find Haoming already sitting inside. Haoming looks up from his phone, completely surprised to see her standing there. Yu Sheng immediately tries to bolt out the door, but the sudden movement causes a loud clatter. Haoming quickly reaches out to stop her, determined not to let her run away again. He looks at her with a serious expression, insisting that they finally need to talk. After an accidental collision during the scramble, Yu Sheng checks on him as he sits on the floor clutching his head. Haoming blocks the path to the door, pleading with her to stay and listen. He begins by offering a sincere apology for the tension his confession has caused. Yu Sheng stands quietly by the door as he explains how much he has been overthinking that night. She watches him with a conflicted expression while he speaks from the heart. Haoming remains on the floor, expressing his hope that they can eventually go back to being friends. Yu Sheng pauses, contemplating if returning to their old dynamic is even possible. She slowly moves the door, processing everything he just said. The two linger in the quiet room, both fully aware that their relationship has reached a point of no return. Yu Sheng looks uncertain and asks for some time to process her feelings. Haoming listens intently, his expression serious as he takes in her request. He suddenly jumps up with a loud confirmation, startling Yu Sheng with his high energy. Haoming looks her in the eye and promises that he is willing to wait for her answer. The two share a quiet, lingering moment before the reality of the tournament sets back in. A team whistle blares in the distance, signaling that it is time for Haoming to prepare for his next race. Yu Sheng offers him words of encouragement as he turns to head back to the pool. Haoming flashes a cheerful smile and waves goodbye to her. Yu Sheng watches him walk away, reflecting on how he is always the one to initiate contact in their relationship. She eventually makes her way back to the stands and reunites with Jang Yun. Jang Yun informs her that she missed the women's event during her absence. As she watches the swimmers prepare, Yu Sheng begins to question if her feelings for Haoming go beyond simple friendship. The scoreboard updates, showing that Haoming has secured the top rank in his freestyle heat. Down on the deck, Haoming is surrounded by his teammates as they celebrate their progress. Jang Yun and Yu Sheng lean over the railing to congratulate him on making the finals. Haoming explains that a team meeting will prevent him from joining them for dinner later. The girls promise to return the following day to cheer him on during his final race. Haoming suddenly tosses a small mascot charm up toward Yu Sheng to catch. She successfully grabs the keepsake as Haoming cheers for her from the pool deck. Yu Sheng stares at the small gift in her hands while Jang Yun watches with an amused expression. A teammate nearby jokingly teases Haoming about his public display of attention toward the stands. The teammate continues to banter as they head back toward the locker rooms. Later that evening in their room, Jang Yun directly asks Yu Sheng if the two of them are officially dating. Yu Sheng reacts with a panicked denial as her friend playfully pesters her for more information. Clinging to the mascot charm, Yu Sheng admits that she is still considering her response to his confession. Jang Yun is excited by the revelation, viewing the situation as a charming romantic dilemma. She advises Yu Sheng to be bold and pursue the relationship if she truly likes him. Jang Yun also notes that it's best to be honest and clear if she doesn't share those feelings. Yu Sheng expresses her gratitude for the support, and they enjoy a moment of close friendship. They both laugh after realizing that the mascot gift bears a striking resemblance to Haoming. Late at night, Haoming and a friend walk near the facility while discussing a gift for Yu Sheng's book signing. Their conversation is cut short when they hear the sound of water splashing in the dark pool area. The friend begins telling a local legend about a ghost that appears to gold medalists after major races. Haoming tells him to stop the scary stories, clearly feeling uneasy about the dark surroundings. A dark silhouette suddenly looms behind them, making the boys freeze in their tracks. They both scream in absolute terror as a figure emerges from the shadows. Haoming panics and scolds his friend for bringing up such a bad omen at night. Haoming and Jang Yun bolt in terror from the mysterious silhouette, only to be stopped by a familiar voice. Cece steps into the light, clutching her shoulder in visible discomfort. The boys are paralyzed with shock and relief that their ghost is actually their teammate. Cece explains that her shoulder is flaring up, prompting the group to head straight for the infirmary. She reveals that an old injury from a past fall often causes her pain after intense training. The school doctor examines her and delivers the grim news that she must withdraw from the competition to recover. Haoming listens intently, his expression shifting to one of deep concern for his teammate. Devastated, Cece explains that she pushed herself because she was desperate to win the gold medal. She admits that her entire drive for swimming is tied to her competitive success. Haoming and Jang Yun react with dramatic intensity, feeling as though they somehow jinxed her season. Cece looks down, struggling with the reality that she cannot compete in her current state. Haoming places his hands on her shoulders to steady her, vowing to win the gold medal on her behalf. Moving her with his sincerity, Cece looks up at him with newfound hope. Another teammate enters the room to check on the situation as the atmosphere shifts toward determination. Haoming and Jang Yun strike a pose, declaring they will break the curse with a victory. The results board confirms their success, showing Lu Haoming at the top of the freestyle finals. Haoming celebrates his hard-earned victory by proudly holding up his gold medal. From the stands, Sheng and her friend observe the team's unusually high energy following the win. They discuss Cece's absence from the women's final, noting she had to be taken to the hospital. A close-up shows the gold medal from the men's 100 in freestyle, a symbol of the promise kept. Jang Yun visits Cece at the hospital, finding her sitting alone in the waiting area. He explains that he is there because Haoming had to see Sheng off at the airport. Jang Yun maintains a serious expression as he checks in on her well-being. Cece admits to feeling defeated, expressing that this wasn't how she imagined the tournament ending. A smartphone displays a social media post pairing Haoming and Cece as a swimming couple. On the train, Haoming is shocked to see the viral post and worries it will cause a misunderstanding. Sheng looks out the window as the train begins to depart for her trip. Haoming is revealed to be sitting right next to her, having snuck away from the team's celebration to join her. He presents her with a travel first aid kit, explaining it contains essentials in case she gets hurt or sick. The two share a quiet, thoughtful moment as they settle into the train ride together. Haoming watches Sheng with a soft, affectionate expression. Sheng glances back at him, clearly touched by his constant care and presence. She holds the first aid kit tightly, reflecting on the kindness he has shown her. Outside, the train speeds along the tracks toward her destination. Sitting side by side, Sheng finally addresses his confession and suggests they start a relationship. Sheng looks thoughtfully out the train window as she considers the weight of her feelings. She sits across from Haoming and explains that she wants to stay by his side. Gripping her medical kit nervously, she finally asks him if they should start dating. Haoming stands up in complete shock, his face turning bright red at the sudden proposal. Both of them are overwhelmed with excitement and disbelief as they realize their relationship has officially changed. The train soon reaches the airport station, forcing their conversation to come to an end. Sheng steps off the train and onto the platform to continue her journey alone. She feels incredibly flustered as she processes the fact that she was the one to suggest they date. Haoming leans out from the crowded train doors to shout a final goodbye to her. He watches her through the glass with a look of longing as the doors begin to close. Sheng stands on the platform and watches the train pull away into the distance. She whispers a soft farewell to him while holding onto her suitcase. Later that night, the city lights glow as she arrives at her destination. A staff member shows Sheng to her room so she can get some much-needed rest. While lying in bed, she begins to feel physical discomfort due to her monthly cycle. She sits up and decides to check the first aid kit Haoming prepared for her. Inside the kit, she finds that Haoming specifically packed painkillers and wellness supplies just for her. She sits in the quiet room, touched by how much care and foresight he put into her well-being. Back at the training center, Haoming looks absolutely miserable on his first day without her. He walks through the halls radiating a gloomy energy because they are separated. Jang Yun and a friend notice his dramatic behavior, comparing him to a lonely pet. They discuss how difficult it must be for him to be away from the girl he likes. Jang Yun tries to cheer the friend up by offering to hang out, but his cheerful attitude isn't helping. The friend ignores his offer and tells him to leave her alone. During dinner, Haoming is completely distracted, worrying about whether Sheng is staying warm in the cold weather. Cece loses her patience and slams the table, fed up with his constant nagging and worrying. She abruptly leaves the table while the rest of the group watches in silence. Haoming looks confused by the outburst while still clutching his phone. The remaining teammates continue their meal, feeling the awkward tension Cece left behind. They comment on how annoying it can be when someone is completely love-struck. A massive storm hits the city that night, bringing heavy rain and howling winds. Haoming tosses and turns in his sleep as the wind rattles against his window. He suffers through a nightmare where shadowy figures mock him for being vulnerable without Sheng there to protect him. He wakes up in a cold sweat, clutching his blankets and determined to find her. Sheng waves to a large crowd of fans at her book signing, feeling overwhelmed by the massive turnout. She starts feeling dizzy and nervous under the intense gaze of so many people. To calm her nerves, she tries to visualize the crowd as inanimate vegetables while continuing to sign books. A fan, appearing as a vegetable in her imagination, enthusiastically expresses their long-term support for her work. Sheng smiles warmly and thanks the dedicated fan for their kind words. A young boy approaches the table, presenting a book for an autograph. Sheng is surprised by such a young reader and asks for his name. The boy explains he's actually there to get an autograph for his father, who is a loyal fan. She is pleasantly surprised to learn that her work appeals to parents as well. Suddenly, a loud crashing noise echoes through the venue, startling everyone inside. Event staff quickly use radios to investigate the noise, suspecting the strong winds outside caused damage. Sheng continues her work, but finds herself worrying about how Haoming is handling the stormy weather. Meanwhile, Haoming wanders through the building, feeling lost and intimidated by the complex layout. Security guards spot him in a restricted area and demand to know why he's trespassing. Panicked, Haoming tries to explain himself while the guards move in to detain him. He realizes he's in a difficult situation as the guards prepare to take action. Haoming insists he's only there to see his senior, but the guards don't believe his story. The guards loom over him, pressuring him to surrender as the misunderstanding escalates. After things are cleared up, the guards apologize for the mistake, explaining they were on high alert for trespassers. Sheng steps in to smooth things over, telling the guards it was just a simple misunderstanding. The guards head back to their posts, leaving the couple alone in the hallway. Sheng's colleague notes how busy she is while Haoming stands quietly behind her. The colleague hands over a business card for a potential interview to help promote the novel. Sheng looks at the card thoughtfully, considering the next steps for her career. The curious colleague asks who the handsome guy standing with her is. Sheng confidently introduces Haoming as her boyfriend, much to his blushing surprise. The colleague finds their relationship adorable and offers a cheerful compliment. With the event wrapping up, the colleague says goodbye and warns them to be careful of the typhoon. Once they are alone, Sheng asks Haoming what specifically brought him all this way. Haoming looks at her softly and admits he simply wanted to see her. He struggles to admit he was actually scared of the storm, while she wonders if this level of devotion is normal for dating. Seeing the heavy rain outside, Sheng asks if he has a place to stay for the night. At the hotel front desk, they are told that all the rooms are completely booked due to the typhoon. Both of them realize they've just walked right into a classic romantic trope. Haoming suggests checking other hotels for vacant rooms as Sheng watches him. Looking out the window, they see the intense typhoon winds whipping through the city. The hotel staff advises Haoming to stay inside for safety until the storm passes. Sheng leads Haoming into a room, deciding it's best for him to stay the night. Both characters look incredibly nervous as they realize the situation they're in. Sheng heads off to freshen up while a blushing Haoming tries to keep his cool. Left alone, Haoming agrees to sit down and try to get some rest. He stands in the middle of the room, feeling awkward about the sleeping arrangements. Haoming's mind races as he panics about being alone in a room with his girlfriend. He debates whether he should sleep on the bed or the floor to remain a gentleman. Haoming rushes to the window to calm his breathing and clear his head. He strikes a heroic pose, declaring himself to be a righteous and honorable man. Sheng returns from her shower, drying her hair with a towel. She is confused to find Haoming standing on a table while looking out the window. A flustered Haoming claims he was just checking the window seals against the typhoon. Sheng looks at him blankly, seemingly unconvinced by his frantic explanation. She tells him it's his turn to use the facilities while he nervously agrees. Haoming hides his face in shame, terrified that he acted like a total weirdo. Sheng sits on the bed, blushing slightly as she hears the water running. She dives into the bed, feeling embarrassed after witnessing Haoming's earlier panic. The two lie in bed together, completely stiff and too nervous to even move. Sheng breaks the silence to address Haoming, who responds with a startled jump. She explains that she was worried about him being home alone during such a bad storm. Haoming listens intently as she shares her feelings about the day's events. Sheng admits that seeing him at her book signing instantly put her at ease. They share a quiet, tender moment as the tension between them begins to soften. Suddenly, Sheng turns away and wishes him a blunt good night. Haoming is left shocked and wide awake by the sudden shift in the atmosphere. He stares out at the rain-lashed skyscraper, wondering how he's supposed to sleep now. A transition marks the arrival of the next day. Haoming wakes up groggily to find a fully dressed and stunning Sheng ready for her schedule. He quickly bounces out of bed to get ready so he can accompany her to an interview. They arrive at the designated room for the meeting, checking the address one last time. They enter the room and are greeted by a staff member who has been waiting for them. A close-up reveals the mysterious Ms. Wei, the person conducting the interview. Sheng and Haoming stand together at the door, ready to begin the professional meeting. Ms. Wei offers a knowing smile as she confirms Sheng's identity. Ziki covers her mouth in shock as she recognizes the person standing before her. Sheng stares back with wide eyes, stunned to see her old acquaintance. An awkward silence fills the room as the two women process the unexpected reunion. Ziki mentions that she almost didn't recognize Sheng because she has changed so much since high school. Sheng brushes her hair back, feeling a bit self-conscious under the scrutiny. She fidgets with her notebook, clearly unsettled by the turn of events. Ziki maintains a pleasant expression while congratulating congratulating Yu Sheng on achieving her dream of becoming an author. Yu Sheng offers a polite but forced smile in return. Haoming watches the exchange from the background, sensing the heavy atmosphere between them. Ziki reaches out toward Yu Sheng, attempting to bridge the distance. She places a hand over Yu Sheng's, bringing up a sensitive incident from their past. Yu Sheng is visibly shaken when Ziki mentions a teacher being fired and the impact it had. A dark memory surfaces of Yu Sheng standing alone while classmates whispered behind her back. Haoming quickly intervenes by offering Yu Sheng a glass of water to disrupt the uncomfortable conversation. Ziki looks up at Haoming, finally taking notice of Yu Sheng's companion. She identifies him as the rising star from the university swimming team. Haoming stands tall between them, explaining that he just happened to be there. Ziki keeps her composure as the topic shifts to the articles she has written. The group settles into their seats to proceed with the professional interview. Ziki promises to clarify any rumors to her readers if the couple feels uncomfortable. The meeting ends with a formal handshake between the two professionals. Haoming and Yu Sheng walk through the terminal, leaving the interview behind. Ziki watches them go, noting to herself that they are indeed an official couple. Yu Sheng looks down as a familiar sense of unease begins to weigh on her. Haoming notices her distress and turns to check on her. He asks if she is all right, noting that her mood has shifted since the meeting. Haoming panics internally, unsure of the best way to offer comfort. Yu Sheng is amused by his obvious concern and lets out a small chuckle. She smiles warmly, apologizing for making him worry about her. Haoming looks out for her safety as they board their flight back home. He suggests they go on a proper date once they are back in the city. Haoming checks a newsfeed on his phone that shows a post about their relationship. While Haoming plans their next outing, Yu Sheng wonders how she will explain everything to her friends. A social media post goes live, officially breaking the news of the romance between the famous author and the star athlete. Students at school gossip about the viral news involving a prominent athlete and his new relationship. Two students spot Sisi from the swimming team and decide to ask her for the inside scoop. They excitedly approach her, wanting to know if the rumors about Lu Haoming and Yu Sheng are actually true. Sisi gives them a cold shoulder, clearly annoyed by the sudden interest in her teammates' private life. She quickly dismisses them and walks away, leaving the two students feeling rejected. Over at the pool, Haoming dries off after practice while his mind stays focused on his new reality. His teammates huddle together, questioning what he sees in a woman they perceive as gloomy and reserved. Haoming looks on in confusion as his friends continue to critique his dating choices. One friend gets particularly loud, demanding that Haoming keep his public displays of affection to himself. The group continues to tease him, jokingly accusing him of showing off to the entire world. Their fun is cut short when the coach's intimidating shadow looms over them, catching them slacking off. The coach drags the troublemakers away for a lecture, leaving Haoming to watch the chaotic scene. Yu Sheng contemplates how to break the news of her relationship to her close friend Zhang Yun. Her classmates are overjoyed when she surprises them with signed copies of her latest book. The festive mood shifts slightly when Zhang Yun brings up the viral news about Haoming. Yu Sheng immediately panics, stumbling over her words as she tries to explain why she kept it a secret. She eventually comes clean and confirms that the two of them are officially dating. Zhang Yun responds with a warm smile and genuine congratulations, putting Yu Sheng's fears to rest. A nearby student is stunned by the revelation, realizing the school's dream couple is now a reality. Relieved by the positive reaction, Yu Sheng finally allows herself a small, happy smile. As they walk through the halls, Zhang Yun mentions that the entire school is buzzing with the news. Yu Sheng checks her phone, realizing that being associated with someone famous brings unwanted scrutiny. While many comments are supportive, the sheer volume of people discussing her life is overwhelming. Her mood sours as she sees trolls claiming the relationship is just a publicity stunt for a TV adaptation. Darker rumors begin to resurface in the comments, referencing past scandals from her high school days. Despite the online noise, Yu Sheng and Zhang Yun continue their walk, heading toward the athletic area. They cross paths with the swimming team, who are still recovering from their encounter with the coach. Haoming immediately recognizes Yu Sheng and stops what he's doing to look her way. He breaks away from his group and rushes over to meet her, much to the amusement of his teammates. He asks if she wants to grab dinner, but she politely declines, feeling drained from the day's events. Without a second thought, Haoming tells his friends he's skipping out on their plans to be with her. His teammates are left behind, jokingly calling him out for prioritizing his girlfriend over his friends. Ignoring their shouts, Haoming focuses entirely on Yu Sheng and offers to walk her home. As they walk through the quiet streets, he admits that the extra laps and the online comments have worn him out. Yu Sheng listens as they walk side by side, finding comfort in his presence despite the public pressure. Haoming suddenly pulls out a long list, proudly revealing a dating manual he compiled from helpful fan suggestions. Haoming presents Yu Sheng with a massive list of plans, asking her if she wants to hang out over the weekend. Yu Sheng stares at the never-ending scroll of paper, feeling a bit overwhelmed by the sheer length of his itinerary. Despite her hesitation, she agrees to the plans, causing Haoming to celebrate with a burst of pure joy. As they walk, Haoming skips ahead with unbridled excitement while Yu Sheng watches him with a look of mild concern. Yu Sheng remains quiet and thoughtful, reflecting on the situation as they head home. Misinterpreting her silence, Haoming begins to weep comically, forcing Yu Sheng to quickly reassure him that she is actually thrilled. Back at school, Yu Sheng sits at her desk looking visibly stressed about the upcoming weekend and the social pressure. Zhang Yun tries to cheer her up, encouraging her to dress nicely and focus on making great memories during the date. Their blonde friend chimes in with a humorous fact about peacocks to lighten the mood while Zhang Yun continues her pep talk. Yu Sheng remains preoccupied, unable to shake off the negative comments she saw online. A sudden knock at the door interrupts her thoughts, and she invites the person to enter. A group of enthusiastic fans bursts in, immediately asking for autographs and photos because they recognize her from the viral news. Yu Sheng politely declines the photo request, but agrees to sign an autograph for the persistent student. The piece is short-lived as another knock sounds at the door almost immediately. More students crowd the entrance, asking intrusive questions about her relationship status and future novels. Yu Sheng looks awkward and uncomfortable under the scrutiny while Zhang Yun tries to step in and shut down the interrogation. The knocking continues relentlessly, adding to the chaotic atmosphere in the room. While Zhang Yun loses her patience with the crowd, Yu Sheng decides to handle the situation by confronting whoever is at the door. She throws the door open, prepared to tell the visitors to stop bothering them. To her surprise, Haoming is standing there, looking a bit startled by her aggressive greeting. Seeing her frustrated expression, Haoming begins to cry, thinking she is already tired of him. He quickly shifts gears and shouts at the other students hiding around the corner to leave them alone. Zhang Yun joins the fray, yelling at the gossipers to go finish their assignments instead of prying into others' lives. The crowd of curious students quickly scatters as Haoming and Zhang Yun stand their ground. The group discusses how an official post on social media is the main reason the gossip has spread so fast. The blonde student checks his phone and suggests that this viral attention might not be entirely negative. He points out that the fame could actually serve as a great opportunity to promote Yu Sheng's novels. He reminds her that she hasn't done anything wrong and the content of her work is genuine. Yu Sheng listens to his advice, considering the idea of staying strong against the trolls. Haoming and Zhang Yun begin a small argument over who is Yu Sheng's most dedicated supporter. The two continue to bicker playfully while the others watch the scene unfold. Yu Sheng expresses her sincere gratitude to her friends for standing by her during the controversy. The friends give a confident thumbs up, assuring her that they have dealt with much worse drama in the past. They joke about embarrassing public incidents to help Yu Sheng feel less self-conscious. Haoming remains in a bit of a slump, feeling bad about the trouble the situation has caused. Yu Sheng reaches out to offer a supportive gesture, apologizing for the stress he's under. Haoming looks up as she confesses that she is truly looking forward to their time together. With a warm smile, she suggests they leave early the next day to ensure they have enough time for everything on his massive list. Yu Sheng opens her door to find Haoming waiting with a bright morning greeting. The two stand together, ready to begin their highly anticipated day out. They leave the apartment complex behind as the weekend weather clears up. Haoming reveals a meticulously handwritten itinerary covering every stop of their journey. While traveling, Yu Sheng expresses her surprise at how much effort went into the planning. Their first stop is a massive aquarium filled with schools of tropical fish. The pair watches the vibrant marine life through the glass of the main tank. A sudden appearance by a large shark gives the couple a genuine shock. The scene shifts as they move from the aquarium toward their next destination. They arrive at a popular restaurant known for its highly rated signature dishes. The duo settles into a booth to enjoy a quiet meal together. Haoming struggles to handle the heat after taking a bite of some incredibly spicy food. For their next activity, they head to the cinema to watch a famous romantic movie. They sit in the darkened theater as the film reaches its most emotional climax. Haoming ends up being the one moved to tears by the story's ending. Feeling like the date isn't going according to his perfect plan, Haoming grows discouraged. They spot a game center featuring a crane machine full of adorable bunny plushies. Haoming determines to use his skills to win a prize and salvage the day's mood. He inserts a coin and activates the mechanical claw for a precise grab. The claw successfully latches onto a large white bunny and lifts it up. The mechanism carries the prize over to the drop-off point. The bunny plushie falls perfectly into the bin for them to collect. Despite the win, Haoming still feels awkward, and Yu Sheng tries to cheer him up. As they walk away, Yu Sheng wonders if Haoming was actually more attached to the prize than she realized. They pass by a promotional booth offering special rewards for couples. Haoming pauses to listen as the staff announces the rules of the event. Yu Sheng suggests they join in and offers him a taste of her dessert. The gesture completely catches Haoming off guard, filling him with renewed excitement. Nearby students begin to recognize the pair from the recent viral social media posts. Sensing the rising attention, Yu Sheng quickly reacts to keep Haoming from being spotted. The realization that people are pointing and whispering makes the situation tense. Haoming firmly takes Yu Sheng's hand to guide her through the gathering crowd. Yu Sheng watches him, reflecting on why he is the one she chooses to be with. They make a run for it together, escaping the prying eyes of the public to finish their date in peace. Haoming and Yu Sheng walk through a quiet park at night, finally feeling safe from the public eye. Haoming smiles as he talks to her, but Sheng seems a bit flustered by the close proximity. Realizing he's still holding her hand, Haoming panics and pulls away, apologizing for being in such a hurry. He looks frustrated with his own awkwardness while Sheng remains composed. She looks at him with a steady, thoughtful gaze. The pair continues their stroll through the courtyard, enjoying the lack of crowds. Haoming tries to keep the conversation light and cheerful. He accidentally grabs her hand again in his excitement, but quickly retreats, feeling embarrassed once more. Internally, Haoming beats himself up for being so clumsy while Sheng gives him a gentle, reassuring look. She watches him closely, her expression filled with appreciation. Sheng stops and tells him that she honestly wishes they had met much sooner. Haoming steps forward and places his hands on her shoulders, insisting that it's not too late for them. They lock eyes in a tense, intimate moment as the atmosphere around them shifts. They stand together in the stillness of the night, the world around them fading away. Suddenly, a rustling sound from the nearby bushes breaks the silence and catches their attention. Terrified by the noise, Haoming lets out a yell and pulls Sheng into a tight, protective embrace. He squeezes her so hard in his panic that Sheng can barely catch her breath. Convinced he's seen a ghost, Haoming frantically hoists her up to get away from the shadows. A figure emerges from the dark wearing a glowing skull shirt that looks like a hovering spirit. The duo quickly realizes the ghost is actually Sissy out for a night jog. Haoming points at her and scolds her for wearing such a terrifying outfit in the middle of the night. Sissy looks down at her clothes, wondering if her style is actually that weird. Sheng watches the two bicker with a quiet, observant expression, annoyed by their presence. Sissy insults them one last time before storming off into the night. Haoming notes that Sissy seems to have become much meaner since the first time they met. A flashback to the school gym shows the start of their complicated history. A younger Sissy looks gloomy and irritable during an old confrontation. Sheng remembers being completely intimidated by Sissy's intense and scary aura. Sissy had cornered Sheng in the hallway, calling her and Haoming incredibly annoying. Other students stopped to watch, whispering about whether a fight was about to break out. Sissy snapped at the onlookers, scaring them off with her aggressive attitude. Back then, Sissy vented her frustrations, declaring that no one had the right to look down on her despite her personality. Sheng listened quietly, absorbing the weight of Sissy's words. Sissy's eyes showed a brief moment of vulnerability as she waited for a response. Instead of arguing, Sheng offered a kind smile and admitted that she actually envied Sissy's honesty. Sissy reacted with total shock, pointing a finger and blushing as she tried to process the compliment. She eventually huffed and walked away, leaving the couple behind while reflecting on her own past feelings. Sissy continues walking alone, finally accepting that Haoming has someone else by his side. As the distance grows between them, Sissy decides it is finally time to move forward with her own life. Lu Haoming is shocked to hear rumors that Sissy is planning to quit the swimming team. His teammates discuss her recent injury and mention that someone saw her getting rid of her gear. Hearing that she's also heartbroken over her recent failures, Haoming decides he has to find her and talk. Sissy stands alone by a bin, looking down at a keepsake as she prepares to move on from the past. Haoming rushes into the room and shouts for Sissy to calm down before she makes a mistake. He grabs her arm and the keepsake, pleading with her not to give up on her dreams so easily. Sissy tells him to let go, but he stubbornly refuses until he gets a promise from her. He insists she shouldn't quit, leaving Sissy looking at him in complete shock and confusion. Sissy eventually explains that she was only tossing old equipment for new gear, and that her injury isn't career-ending. Haoming suddenly notices Sissy is dressed up today, wearing earrings and heels for a change. Flustered by his observation, Sissy blushes and tells him to mind his own business. As she tries to stomp away, her high heel twists, causing her to lose her balance. Sissy falls forward into Haoming's arms just as Sheng happens to walk into the room. Haoming freezes in terror, realizing how bad this awkward situation looks to his girlfriend. Sheng stands there silently, staring at the two of them with a piercing expression. Haoming panics, feeling like he's trapped in a nightmare while Sheng watches them. Seeing Sheng start to turn away, Haoming's heart sinks as he fears she's leaving him. He shouts for her not to run off, desperate to explain the total misunderstanding. Sissy watches calmly as Haoming frantically clarifies that nothing happened, and it was just an accident. Sheng finally speaks up, admitting she'll stay but asking him to let go of Sissy first. Sissy reflects on her long-term pursuit of a childhood crush, finally admitting it was just wishful thinking. She tosses the charm back at Haoming, declaring she doesn't need it anymore and will win a medal on her own. Haoming looks confused by the sudden outburst, while Sheng watches the exchange. Sissy walks away with her head held high, finally ready to close that chapter of her life. A student notices Sissy struggling to walk and stops her to offer a steadying hand. Lin Yu steps in to help, revealing he's always been there for her even if she never noticed him before. Back with the main couple, Sheng notes that Haoming sounded quite harsh when he yelled at her earlier. Haoming immediately switches to an apologetic mode, explaining he was just worried about her running away. He stops and asks Sheng if the reason she tried to leave was that she was actually jealous. Sheng blushes and admits she doesn't like it when other girls get so close to him. Haoming is absolutely struck by her confession, feeling like his heart is being overwhelmed with joy. Sheng tells Haoming that she gets jealous seeing him with other girls because she likes him so much. She continues her emotional confession, asking if he truly understands the depth of her feelings. Haoming is visibly stunned and blushes as he reciprocates the sentiment in this dreamlike state. Suddenly, the scene shifts to reality where Haoming is actually shouting into his pillow while thrashing around his room. He ends up falling right off the bed, realizing the entire romantic moment was just a figment of his imagination. Sheng knocks on his door to check if he's awake, prompting a frantic Haoming to rush through his morning routine. As they walk together through the cold, Haoming seems completely oblivious when she asks if he knows what today is. At school, a friend is shocked to find him so dazed and informs him that it is actually Christmas Day. Haoming panics, realizing he has completely lost track of time and has nothing prepared for the holiday. He begs his friend for help, who immediately steps into the role of a dating counselor to save the day. The friend suggests a classic approach, pointing toward a florist and claiming that roses are always a romantic win. Unfortunately, they arrive at the counter only to find that every single flower has already been sold out. Pivoting to a new plan, the friend suggests that a high-end lipstick is the trendy gift every lady wants these days. Their hopes are dashed again when the shopkeeper reveals a limited edition item with a price tag far beyond a student's budget. Still determined, the friend suggests visiting a workshop to pick out a custom-made plushie instead. They reach the workshop only to be told that they don't take walk-ins and require orders to be placed a week in advance. Haoming slumps over in total despair as his friend tries to keep him from giving up hope. The shopkeeper offers a final alternative, suggesting Haoming can use their materials to craft a handmade doll himself. After working at lightning speed, a triumphant Haoming celebrates finally finishing his creation. He thanks the staff and leaves the shop with his sincere, handmade gift in hand. His mood takes a sharp turn when he spots Sheng walking with another guy and immediately assumes the worst. From her perspective, Sheng and her companion notice a familiar figure lurking near the entrance. Haoming stands frozen in shock, feeling like his world is crashing down on Christmas. He begins running away in a dramatic fit of heartbreak, intending to spend the rest of the day alone. Sheng calls him back and invites him to join them, causing him to turn around with instant excitement. Sheng reaches out and begins wrapping a thick red scarf around his neck to keep him warm. She explains that she spent the day shopping with friends specifically to find this gift for him. Their friends watch the interaction from a distance, happy to see the gift was a success. Sheng opens Haoming's box to find a unique, handmade doll that looks a bit rough around the edges. Haoming bashfully admits he forgot the date and had to scramble to finish the project at the last minute. Despite its appearance, the doll represents a significant amount of effort and care. Sheng looks at the handmade creation with a soft and appreciative expression. Haoming pulls Sheng close, the two sharing a quiet moment together. Bright fireworks explode in the night sky as they enjoy their first Christmas hug. Their romantic atmosphere is quickly interrupted by the sound of loud laughter from their nearby friends. The group is having a blast laughing at photos of the unique, handmade dolls Haoming created. Embarrassed, Haoming covers Sheng's eyes to prevent her from seeing the teasing messages on their phones. He gets worked up as his friends continue to joke about his artistic skills. Sheng watches with a smile as the boy chases his laughing friends through the park. Later, the two walk hand in hand, with Haoming offering to find a more peaceful spot away from the noise. Sheng smiles to herself, realizing how much she has grown accustomed to having him by her side. Haoming gazes at her with a serious expression, listening to her talk about their future. The entire group pauses to watch the colorful display lighting up the winter sky. Sheng looks hopeful, wishing that this group of friends could stay together like this forever. Haoming smiles back warmly, fully agreeing with her sentiment. He gives her hand a gentle squeeze, feeling incredibly happy just to be in her company. They share a promise to stay together as the holiday night draws to a close. However, the mood shifts when Haoming sees a notice that winter vacation starts immediately and lasts for over 2 months. Sheng waves goodbye with her backpack on, ready to head home for the Lunar New Year. Haoming is devastated at the station, crying out as he realizes how long they will be apart. Sheng starts her journey home, checking her messages while sitting on her flight. Her father greets her at the door with a warm smile as soon as she arrives home. She captures a photo of the delicious home-cooked meal waiting for her on the table. During dinner, Sheng catches up with her parents about her time away at school. She reassures them that she isn't lonely and has made many wonderful friends. Her parents listen intently as she mentions meeting someone who has been a great help to her lately. Meanwhile, Haoming is out with his own family, but he can't seem to put his phone down for a second. Even while traveling in the car, he stays glued to his screen, hoping for a message from Sheng. He suddenly looks surprised by something he sees on his phone. After dropping his things at the hotel, he rushes out to meet a friend, leaving his family confused. Haoming is fired up, realizing that he's actually very close to Sheng's house. Nearby, Sheng's father is busy sweeping the snowy sidewalk while thinking about his daughter's update. He starts to get protective, wondering exactly who this gentle guy from school could be. Just then, Haoming loses his footing and face plants right into the snow in front of him. The father looks down in complete shock at the stranger who just crashed into his workspace. Haoming looks up from the ground, realizing he's had a very awkward awkward first meeting with her dad. Yu Sheng's father enters the house and calls out to her, announcing a surprise guest. He brings Haoming inside, explaining that the two of them happen to run into each other just outside the building. Her mother warmly welcomes the visitor and immediately invites him to stay for the lunch she has nearly finished preparing. Haoming panics internally, worried about his appearance and the fact that he arrived to meet her parents without any gifts. Yu Sheng and Haoming share a look of utter shock as they try to process the awkwardness of this sudden meeting. The mother insists they stop standing around and sit down at the table to begin their meal. The group gathers for lunch, where the atmosphere remains polite but heavily charged with tension. Her mother smiles warmly at Haoming, complimenting him on being such a cheerful and handsome young man. While Haoming offers a shy thank you, Yu Sheng remains quiet as she watches her parents' reactions. Her mother admits she was worried about Yu Sheng's social life and is relieved to finally meet one of her male friends. She goes as far as to joke that it would be wonderful if Yu Sheng could find a boyfriend exactly like Haoming. The father suddenly slams his hands down, loudly disagreeing with the suggestion of Haoming as a potential partner. He leans in with a stern expression, clearly ready to list his grievances. The father details a strict list of requirements, insisting a partner must be older, have a stable job, and be a local to protect his daughter. The parents begin to bicker over these high standards while the young couple watches the chaos unfold in distress. After the meal concludes, Haoming thanks the couple for their hospitality and prepares to depart. Yu Sheng offers to walk him out to the street while her mother waves a friendly goodbye. Her father remains skeptical, vowing to keep a very close eye on his daughter's future relationships. As the two walk through the city, the aroma of street food from nearby stalls fills the winter air. Yu Sheng suggests taking a detour to show Haoming around the neighborhood where she grew up. They enjoy some local snacks together while strolling through the busy, nostalgic streets. Haoming chats happily while they eat, enjoying the casual time away from the pressure of her parents. They eventually stop by Yu Sheng's old high school, finding her former classroom still looks exactly the same. She leads him inside and points out the exact seat where she used to spend her days studying. Sitting at the desks, she tells him that being here together makes her feel as though they were once classmates. They share a quiet, reflective moment as they look at each other in the empty room. Haoming gazes at her with a gentle and sincere expression, taking in her words. He tells her he hopes this place holds more than just difficult memories for her. The two share a supportive and meaningful connection as the afternoon light fades across the classroom. Meanwhile, Haoming's father stands at home, wondering why his son is taking so long to return. His mother mentions how much Haoming's habits have changed lately, noting his constant phone usage. She lightheartedly suggests that their son has finally fallen in love with someone. The father is so stunned by the news that he accidentally drops his keepsake. He recalls past misunderstandings and begins to worry intensely about who his son might actually be dating. Haoming returns home carrying a bag of candied fruit and greets his parents with a cheerful smile. His mother gives him a knowing look while his father remains deep in thought, making the young man visibly nervous. The mother warmly invites him to join them for dinner, though the father continues to brood silently in the background. Haoming declines the offer, sweating as he worries that the timing isn't right for a formal family meeting. The father holds a glowing charm while mulling over his son's excuse for staying away. He convinces himself that Haoming is hiding a relationship that the parents might disapprove of. Noticing the odd atmosphere, Haoming asks his mother if his father is simply grumpy from waiting for him. He attempts to apologize for the delay, but his father remains focused on his own thoughts. The father stubs out his charm in a tray and declares that he intends to be a modern and respectful parent. The father walks away, stating that he should respect his son's privacy and personal choices. He decides to head to bed early, leaving the rest of the group confused as they prepare to leave the next day. Haoming is left completely baffled by his father's sudden and strange change in attitude. As the trip concludes, the father is still caught up in overthinking his son's social life while holding another charm. Back home, Yu Sheng's father brings in New Year's gifts left at their door while she checks her phone. On the drive back, Haoming's father continues to make confusing remarks about gaining another family member. Yu Sheng relaxes in bed, happily scrolling through her messages. She recalls a sentimental memory of standing in a quiet classroom with Haoming. In the flashback, the two of them are positioned very close to one another. They maintain steady eye contact during the quiet, sentimental moment. Back in the classroom, both of them blush intensely and look away, feeling the heavy tension of the encounter. Yu Sheng hides under her covers, overwhelmed by the dreamlike nature of the memory. She looks forward to the new year, hoping it will be a wonderful and successful time. A laptop displays news regarding the film adaptation of Yu Sheng's novel and an upcoming swimming tournament. A journalist calls her editor to request an assignment covering both the movie production and the sports event. The journalist hangs up the phone, ready to begin her follow-up reports. She stares at her screen with a confident smile, anticipating the work ahead. An enthusiastic fan screams about wanting an autograph from the film's handsome male lead. Another individual wearing a face mask agrees that the lead actor is incredibly charming. Haoming reacts with a look of pure shock and jealousy at the thought of his girlfriend being around attractive actors. Yu Sheng arrives at her destination, carrying a large travel bag and checking her phone. A crew member waves her over as she arrives at the busy filming location. At his training camp, Haoming grumbles to a teammate about being away while Sheng is surrounded by others. A staff member asks the author to wait for a moment while the set is prepared. Sheng stands in the middle of a bustling film set, observing the professional and busy atmosphere. A handsome man approaches her, asking if she is the creator of the original story. Sheng introduces herself, immediately noting how attractive the male lead is in person. Sheng meets the lead actor, Woo Ziqian, who introduces himself with a cold demeanor. He makes it clear that he's only greeting her out of professional obligation, before walking away. The author is left completely baffled by his frosty and dismissive attitude. The production crew prepares the lodging area for the team to stay during the filming process. A staff member encourages Sheng to get some rest before the upcoming production meeting. Sheng checks her messages and remembers her friend's request for a celebrity autograph. She is stunned to see a massive, energetic crowd gathered just to catch a glimpse of the lead actor. Hoping to fulfill her friend's request, she begins looking for Woo Ziqian's current location. While navigating the building, she nearly runs right into the actor in a quiet hallway. Both of them jump back in surprise at the sudden and unexpected encounter. Sheng questions why a big star like him is hiding out in a secluded corner. He awkwardly admits he was just trying to observe his fans from a distance. As he tries to make a quick exit, Sheng stops him to ask for a favor. The actor pauses and looks back, waiting to hear what the author wants. She presents an autograph board, catching him completely off guard. He immediately assumes she is a secret fan and reacts with visible alarm.
The actor makes a run for it, shouting for her to keep her distance.
Sheng is left standing alone, wondering why he's acting so strange. During the script reading, Woo Ziqian demonstrates his professionalism by suggesting dialogue changes. The production team gathers around the conference table to refine the female lead's character arc. The director turns to Sheng to get her input as the creator of the original story. The team wraps up the session for the day with plans to reconvene the following morning. Sheng watches the actor from afar, debating if it's worth trying to talk to him again. Meanwhile, the actor warns his assistant to be careful about who they introduce to him. Sheng decides to give up on the autograph, finding the interaction far too difficult. An assistant leans in to ask if the author is actually a fan of the lead star. Sheng tries to clarify that she was just acting on behalf of a friend. She worries that her explanation might have accidentally offended the actor's ego. Woo Ziqian suddenly approaches and blocks her path to address the situation directly. He accuses her of being a clever stalker and demands to know her true intentions. At the training center, the coach announces that the upcoming championship is a qualifier for international games. The athletes are informed that their phones will be confiscated to ensure total focus during boot camp. A rival swimmer confidently challenges the group, boasting about his recent hard training. Haoming realizes he's in a total crisis due to the distance, the lack of communication, and the rivals near Sheng. Sheng looks on in complete shock as the situation escalates. She quickly shoves Woo Ziqian away, shouting that he is standing far too close for comfort. Ziqian hits the floor hard, complaining that she actually struck him. His assistant isn't having it, scolding him for being mean while he remains sprawled on the ground. Later, Ziqian sits alone and wonders why his own assistant would just abandon him like that. He takes a phone call in a quiet room, confirming his identity to the person on the other end. He listens with a serious expression as the caller asks if he's met the writer yet. Sheng walks down the stairs, dreading how she will survive the next 2 weeks of production. Meanwhile, Haoming sits on a different set of stairs at camp, wondering if Sheng is taking care of herself. He closes his eyes and wishes that she would just magically appear right in front of him. A rival swimmer approaches with a stern gaze, looking down at the distracted athlete. The rival looms over him, asking if he's in a bad mood and needs some help. Suddenly, a woman interrupts to ask if she can borrow a phone since hers was also taken away. Haoming looks up, surprised by the unexpected visitor. It turns out to be Wei Ziqi, who greets him with a friendly smile. She explains that she's there to interview the athletes for a pre-match article and needs to find the coach. Haoming agrees to lead her to the lounge while she thanks him for the assistance. Wei Ziqi's expression shifts as she mentions having a secondary reason for her visit. She admits that her previous article caused some trouble and wants to apologize. She pulls out her phone to show him a specific picture she recently received. Haoming stares at the screen, looking stoic as he processes what he's seeing. Back at the set, Ziqian's assistant bows deeply to Sheng, apologizing for the terrible treatment she's received. The assistant continues to bow, explaining that she wants to help clarify why Ziqian is so difficult. Sheng listens intently, asking if something happened to him in the past to cause this behavior. A flashback reveals a terrifying car accident caused by an obsessive stalker chasing Ziqian's vehicle. Ziqian is shown inside the wreckage, looking completely traumatized by the impact. Another memory shows him sleeping peacefully in his own home, unaware of any danger. A stalker had actually broken in and was taking photos of him while he was asleep. Ziqian is later seen huddled in a blanket, trembling with fear as the police arrest the intruder. Sheng and the assistant discuss how these traumas made him suspicious of everyone he works with. Sheng decides it's best to simply avoid him in private to prevent any more misunderstandings. Her plan is immediately interrupted when a loud noise startles her. The assistant loses her temper, scolding Ziqian for sneaking around right after she finished cleaning. Ziqian looks away with a guilty expression as he's told to offer a proper apology. Sheng and the assistant look on in complete shock as Ziqian's personality takes a sudden turn, being friendly. Ziqian explains that since his brother acknowledges her, He feels the need to offer a formal apology for his previous behavior. He suddenly reaches out and takes Yu Sheng's hands, insisting they bury the hatchet and become close friends. Taken aback by the physical contact, Yu Sheng quickly pulls away and mentions she already has a boyfriend. Not wanting to linger, Yu Sheng bids the pair a quick farewell and heads out for the day. The assistant remains skeptical, questioning Zikin about his true motives for such a drastic change in attitude. As Yu Sheng walks through the building, her phone begins to ring incessantly. She checks the screen and notices the call is coming from an unknown number, wondering if it's a scam. After deciding to answer, she cautiously asks who is on the other end of the line. Much to her surprise, it's Haoming, who sounds incredibly emotional just hearing her voice again. He tearfully explains that his phone was confiscated during training, forcing him to borrow one just to reach her. Yu Sheng smiles warmly, promising to attend his upcoming matches once her current work is finished. Back at her place, Yu Sheng reflects on the strange and friendly people she's been dealing with lately. She listens as Haoming expresses his relief that she isn't lonely and has found people to spend time with. On the other side of the call, Haoming has a gentle, caring look on his face while they chat. The two share a quiet moment of vulnerability, both admitting how much they truly miss each other. After the call ends, Haoming stands alone in the hallway, looking down at the borrowed phone with a serious expression. Wei Ziki approaches him, asking if he plans to bring up the mysterious photo she showed him to Yu Sheng. Haoming remains firm in his trust, stating that if there was something to know, his partner would have told him. Wei Ziki watches him with a calculating gaze, noting how dedicated he seems to his relationship. She chuckles at the situation, mentioning she never expected her friend to end up with someone so sweet. While Haoming gets flustered by the teasing, Wei Ziki looks on with a pensive expression. When he asks her to delete the problematic image, she simply smiles and refuses, intending to handle things her own way. She then grabs his arm and leads him away, insisting they get back to their scheduled interview. Haoming looks uncomfortable with the proximity as she leads him through the facility. Nearby, a photographer captures a clear shot of the two of them walking together. Meanwhile, at the film set, Yu Sheng tells her colleagues that the distance between her and her boyfriend won't be a problem for long. The assistant suddenly pulls up a trending social media post about a new athletic photo shoot. Yu Sheng's eyes go wide as she stares at the viral image displayed on the smartphone. The post features a professional shot of Haoming, looking every bit the star athlete during his team's promotional session. Yu Sheng is left feeling completely perplexed by her boyfriend's sudden rise to online fame. Her phone rings once more with another call from the same unknown number she spoke to earlier. She answers, assuming it's Haoming calling back, but the silence on the other end makes her pause. It's actually Wei Ziki, who coldly demands that the two of them meet in person. Yu Sheng and Wei Ziki sit across from each other at a high-end restaurant table. Yu Sheng looks skeptical as she asks the interviewer what she really wants from this meeting. Wei Ziki smiles enigmatically, claiming she simply wants to catch up on old times. A waiter arrives at the table to serve a steak and a plate of pasta to the two women. Yu Sheng feels deeply unsettled, remembering how the other woman used to give her the creeps in the past. Yu Sheng begins to eat while Wei Ziki watches her with an intense, unblinking gaze. Wei Ziki wears a subtle, calculating smirk as she observes her former classmate. Yu Sheng eats quietly, while the interviewer complains about the perceived unfairness of their different social backgrounds. Wei Ziki uses her fork to poke at her steak, expressing a dark desire to take what others possess. The interviewer continues her monologue, admitting she has always wanted to see what it's like to have what Yu Sheng has. In a flashback, a younger Wei Ziki compliments Yu Sheng on a new flower-shaped hair charm. The young interviewer shares a story about her family's divorce to gain sympathy from her peer. Young Yu Sheng smiles kindly, trying to offer support and comfort to her classmate. Wei Ziki suddenly asks if she can have the charm, catching Yu Sheng completely off guard. Yu Sheng eventually hands over the floral keepsake for her friend to borrow. Yu Sheng looks down with a grim expression, pleading with the interviewer not to hurt Haoming. Wei Ziki laughs mockingly at the request, finding the sudden display of concern unexpected. The interviewer's expression turns cold as she tells Yu Sheng she only has herself to blame for the situation. Later, a car drives away as Yu Sheng stands outside trying to make a phone call. Yu Sheng is startled when she turns around to find Lu Haoming standing right behind her in a face mask. Haoming explains he came to the airport specifically to see her off before her departure. Yu Sheng rubs her head, feeling mentally drained from her recent confrontation with Wei Ziki. Haoming warns her to wait inside to avoid being seen by the paparazzi hunking nearby. He mentions that his assistant is currently busy parking the car. Haoming adjusts his mask as the pair walks through the airport terminal together. Yu Sheng notices a figure rushing toward them through the crowded hallway. Haoming spots the danger and shouts a warning for her to watch out. The scene captures the sudden shock and impact as someone crashes into the pair. Yu Sheng, Haoming, and an aggressive fan all tumble to the floor in a disorganized heap. Yu Sheng winces in pain as she examines a small scrape on her palm. Security personnel quickly step in to hold back the fan who caused the accident. Yu Sheng scolds Haoming for yelling, worried that he is ruining his celebrity image. She smiles softly, explaining that his face is his primary asset and he shouldn't risk getting hurt. Haoming reaches out and grabs Yu Sheng's arm as her flight boarding call is announced. The athlete hesitates, asking Yu Sheng if there is any way she can stay. At the swimming venue, Haoming stands by the pool in his gear, looking through the crowd to see if Yu Sheng has arrived. The competition kicks off as swimmers dive into the pool for their heats. Spectators in the stands look around anxiously, wondering if Yu Sheng has managed to arrive yet. Standing in the hallway, Wei Ziki checks her phone and receives a confirmation that her plan to delay the group work. She smirks to herself, pleased that her scheme is unfolding exactly as intended. The scoreboard updates to show the top 3 results, with Lu Haoming successfully securing second place. The competitors exchange brief words in the pool, acknowledging their spots in the upcoming finals. Lu Haoming exits the water to the sound of cheering fans, though his expression remains focused and serious. On social media, a photo of him with another woman begins to circulate and quickly goes viral. Wei Ziki walks through the venue, overhearing bystanders who notice her resemblance to the person in the trending photo. She approaches Lu Haoming to offer her congratulations on his performance so far. During their conversation, she casually points out that Yu Sheng hasn't shown up to support him. Lu Haoming maintains a polite smile, assuming his friend is simply running behind schedule. Wei Ziki walks away with a satisfied look, convinced her plan to drive a wedge between them is succeeding. Later, Lu Haoming searches the back hallways of the facility while checking his phone for updates. Suddenly, a hand reaches out from around a corner and pulls him into a secluded area. It turns out to be Yu Sheng, who shushes him with a playful and secretive smile. Overwhelmed with relief, Lu Haoming begins to tear up at the sight of her. He pulls her into a tight embrace, frustrated that she missed his match, but grateful she made it for the finals. He questions why they need to meet in secret, sensing that something is wrong. Yu Sheng explains that she discovered Wei Ziki's sabotage plot at the airport and had to move carefully. A flashback reveals Zikian confronting the fake fan who tried to cause a scene at the airport. He forces the individual to hand over their phone to see the incriminating messages. Zikian stares at the screen with an intense gaze, confirming the identity of the person who hired the fan. The culprit trembles in fear as she is caught in the act of sabotage. Zikian smirks, deciding to feed the culprit false information to ruin the original plan. Back in the present, Yu Sheng notes that despite the actor's help, his methods were a bit irresponsible. She sits down and reflects on how this situation reminds her of the isolation she faced from rumors in high school. She admits that facing these kinds of malicious schemes still makes her feel helpless. Lu Haoming comforts her by placing a hand on her head, promising that history won't repeat itself while he's around. He strikes a determined pose, ready to take on whatever challenges come their way. With a soft smile, he tells her there is something special he wants to do once the competition is over. Yu Sheng looks up at him with wide, curious eyes, surprised by his sudden invitation. The swimmers take their marks at the starting blocks, ready for the high-stakes freestyle finals. Haoming maintains a look of intense focus, mentally preparing for the move he plans to make once the race is over. Wei Ziki watches from the sidelines with a cold expression, waiting to see how her schemes unfold. Beneath the surface, Haoming pushes through the water with everything he has, determined to secure a victory. The crowd erupts into cheers as the swimmers reach the final stretch of the pool. Haoming checks the scoreboard and sees his name at the very top, confirming he is the new champion. While the awards ceremony concludes, a reporter prepares for an exclusive interview with the Golden Boy. Reporters immediately swarm Haoming with microphones, asking how he feels about the viral rumors circulating online. The questions come fast and loud, demanding to know the truth about his current relationship status. One interviewer pointedly asks if his girlfriend is actually present in the stadium to support him. With a confident smile, Haoming looks directly into the cameras and confirms that she is indeed there. He turns his attention toward the crowd, signaling for his partner to step forward. Wei Ziki watches in silence as the champion makes his bold move in front of the media. A pair of heels clicks against the floor as Yu Sheng finally steps out of the shadows. She moves past the observers, ready to face the public eye alongside the man she trusts. In a massive show of affection, Haoming takes Yu Sheng's hand and officially introduces her as his one and only girlfriend. Wei Ziki can only watch in disbelief as her plan to cause a scandal completely backfires. The couple is surrounded by a sea of reporters as Haoming tells the world not to believe the malicious gossip. Haoming looks down at Yu Sheng with a soft expression, declaring that she has always been the only person he loves. Yu Sheng reaches out to steady herself, leaning into the support of her partner. The two share a high-profile romantic moment to solidify their bond for the national broadcast. Fans in the stands go wild, with some capturing the moment on their phones while others express their envy. Even the other athletes on the podium can't help but feel a bit jealous of the dramatic public reveal. Away from the main cameras, the couple shares a frantic moment of realization regarding the scale of their actions. Yu Sheng's nerves finally get the best of her, and Haoming has to help her walk as her knees begin to buckle. The gravity of the situation sets in when Yu Sheng remembers that the entire event was televised across the country. Back at home, her parents are left in a state of absolute shock after witnessing the reveal on their living room TV. Yu Sheng and Haoming stand back to back, anxiously checking their phones for any signs of parental backlash. They are surprised to find a total lack of messages or missed calls despite the massive public reveal. Thinking they might have dodged a bullet, the pair breathes a sigh of relief, hoping their families missed the broadcast. Their peace is short-lived when their phones suddenly explode with a barrage of loud notifications. It turns out to be an invite to a victory banquet for the swimming team, shifting their focus to the upcoming celebration. At the event, Zheng Yun greets Yu Sheng with a high-energy welcome as the party gets into full swing. She playfully teases her friend about the televised confession, calling them both major show-offs. While Haoming is pulled away to speak with his coach, Yu Sheng catches up with her friends in the crowd. Haoming eventually makes his way back, only to be swarmed by teammates demanding he treat everyone to dinner. A student steps forward to organize a group photo with the newly crowned champion. The celebratory mood vanishes when two men appear in the doorway looking absolutely livid. Yu Sheng and Haoming are paralyzed with fear as they realize their fathers have arrived in person. The two dads stare each other down, shocked to discover they are now connected through their children's relationship. Internal monologues reveal that both men were planning to scold their kids, but they're now distracted by their mutual competitive nature. The tension breaks slightly when the mothers arrive, offering warm congratulations to the young couple. The two women quickly realize the situation and exchange surprised looks as they recognize one another. Meanwhile, the fathers continue their heated argument, debating the merits of going public on national television. Haoming stands his ground next to Yu Sheng as his father mocks the idea of traditional arranged marriages. The argument escalates as Yu Sheng's father loudly objects to the idea of his daughter getting married so soon. A cameraman nearby notices the commotion and turns his lens toward the bickering parents. A reporter scurries over, asking the two men for their official thoughts on the high-profile romance. Under the pressure of the spotlight, both fathers instantly put on fake smiles and claim they fully support the couple. Yu Sheng is left speechless by her father's sudden and dramatic change of heart for the cameras. In the shadows, Wei Ziki watches the scene with growing resentment as people praise the couple's real-life drama. She is haunted by memories of being compared to Yu Sheng and always coming in second place. Flashbacks show their teacher openly favoring Yu Sheng's writing talents, fueling Wei Ziki's deep-seated envy. The humiliation of the recent scandal leaves her feeling like she's been treated unfairly by everyone around her. Consumed by bitterness, Wei Ziki follows Yu Sheng and prepares to make a move while no one is looking. Sensing a presence behind her, Yu Sheng begins to turn around as the situation turns dangerous. Haoming looks on from across the area, his expression shifting to one of pure terror. A massive stage light suddenly gives way, creaking as it falls directly toward an unsuspecting Yu Sheng. Haoming lunges forward, gripping Yu Sheng's arm to pull her out of the path of certain disaster. The heavy stage light crashes down, but Haoming manages to shield her with his own body just in time. Yu Sheng looks up in a panic, realizing her companion took the brunt of the impact. Showing incredible strength, Haoming begins to lift the metal frame of the fallen equipment. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to rise despite the weight pressing down on him. Wei Ziki approaches the scene with a cold, mocking expression instead of helping. Yu Sheng stands her ground, demanding to know what the bitter woman is talking about. Wei Ziki lets out a sinister smirk as she begins to bring up a dark secret from their high school days. The two women face off while the saboteur claims that everyone close to Yu Sheng eventually meets a tragic end. Suddenly, a mysterious man in dark sunglasses steps into the light, interrupting the tense confrontation. He stares through his shades, ready to expose the actual truth behind the rumors Wei Ziki is spreading. Wei Ziki's confidence wavers as she stares back at the stranger in stunned silence. The man demands to know if she remembers the specific student who started the slanderous rumors years ago. He lowers his guard and reveals his identity as Wu Ziqian, the younger brother of their former high school teacher. Yu Sheng and Wei Ziki are both paralyzed with shock at this unexpected appearance. The man shifts the mood momentarily, mentioning a sudden day off due to his director's health. Bystanders in the background can't help but notice how handsome the newcomer is in person. Security personnel quickly move in to address the chaos and the trouble Wei Ziki has caused. Yu Sheng stands beside Ziqian as the group reflects on the events that ruined a good man's career. A flashback shows the kind-hearted Mr. Wu offering his scarf to a young, lonely Wei Ziki during a cold day. She clutched the fabric, mistaking his professional kindness for something more personal. Eventually, she tried to hand the teacher a private note, hoping to bridge the gap between them. Mr. Wu looked visibly uncomfortable, sweating as he realized the student had misinterpreted his actions. He politely returned the note, explaining that he treats every student with the same level of care and equality. Wei Ziki felt immediate rejection, her gaze turning cold as she watched the teacher from afar. Her resentment peaked when she saw Mr. Wu providing extra academic help to Yu Sheng in his office. Consumed by envy, she decided that if she couldn't have his favor, she would destroy his reputation entirely. The teacher later spotted Wei Ziki running recklessly into the street and shouted a desperate warning. After the dust settled, she was left sitting on the pavement, while the teacher suffered a life-altering accident to save her. Back in the past, she cried while stubbornly refusing to take any responsibility for the tragedy she caused. In the present, her face twists with a mix of rage and desperation as her lies are laid bare. Yu Sheng stares her down, finally calling out the twisted logic that has fueled Wei Ziki's path of destruction. Yu Sheng walks past a defeated Wei Ziki, remarking that there will always be someone who won't tolerate her actions. Ziki looks down in silence as she reflects on the consequences of her behavior. A brief flashback shows her at an office where colleagues whispered about her dishonest tactics to boost her sales. Sheng stands firm, finally seeing the truth of the situation fully revealed. Authorities eventually lead Ziki away as the couple watches the saboteur finally face justice. At the airport, Sheng's mother smiles warmly, mentioning that even though her father seems grumpy, he actually approves of the relationship. She tells Sheng to bring her boyfriend home formally next time, which the author happily accepts. Her mother then gently brushes her hair back, asking if the heavy burdens of the past have finally been lifted from her heart. With a bright and genuine smile, Sheng confirms that she is finally at peace. As she leans against Haoming later, she admits that meeting him was the turning point that allowed her to face her issues head-on. The pair walks toward a building together, surrounded by a light-hearted and romantic atmosphere. Their peace is interrupted when Wu Ziqian suddenly appears, waving them down with a cheerful greeting. Haoming isn't exactly thrilled to see him, looking immediately suspicious of his arrival. The two men exchange an intense, spark-filled glare as they face off once again. Ziqian smirks at the swimmer's reaction, clearly enjoying the chance to get under his skin. Haoming is left looking completely exasperated as Ziqian pulls Sheng aside for a private chat. Sitting together, Sheng expresses her surprise at learning that Ziqian is actually Mr. Wu's brother. Ziqian explains that it was a long and complicated story, but they finally reunited as family. Sheng listens intently, her concern shifting toward her former teacher's well-being. Ziqian reassures her that Mr. Wu is perfectly healthy and has even returned to teaching at a school. Relieved to hear the good news, Sheng hopes she'll have the chance to see her mentor again soon. She offers a sincere thank you to Ziqian for everything he's done to help clear the air. Ziqian brushes it off as a simple return favor, though Sheng remains a bit puzzled by his tone. His expression softens as he admits he once deliberately tried to stall her at the airport. A flashback shows him holding her hand and asking her to stay for just a few more days. At the time, Sheng declined, prioritizing her promise to be there for Haoming's big competition. Ziqian had accepted her choice then, even if he looked a bit disappointed to see her go. Back in the present, Ziqian acts playful while a jealous Haoming watches them like a hawk from the background. Ziqian mentions he has to head back now, that the director has mostly recovered from his injuries. He waves a final goodbye, promising to have a surprise ready for Sheng's upcoming graduation. He drives off into the distance, leaving the couple alone at last. Haoming huffs, still feeling a bit grumpy about the unexpected visitor. Time flies by, and the scene shifts to the graduation ceremony at Cindy University. Sheng and her friends celebrate their milestone, posing for group photos in their caps and gowns. Haoming and his teammates watch from a nearby window, feeling a bit sentimental about the end of the school year. The athletes discuss their plans for the day as they prepare to meet up with their coach. Sheng checks her phone and sees a congratulatory message from Ziqian. He sends over the promised surprise, showing a photo of a smiling Mr. Wu holding a copy of her latest novel. Sheng smiles at the touching image, feeling deeply grateful for the closure and the support. Haoming catches up to her, waving and apologizing for making her wait during the festivities. They walk hand in hand through the campus, realizing this is their last time leaving the school as students. Haoming gets a bit teary-eyed, feeling the weight of the transition into their next chapter. Sheng looks at him with a look of sudden realization as an idea strikes her. She suggests that they move in together to save on rent and avoid being apart during blackouts. She smiles warmly, sharing her deep-seated hunch that they are meant to be together for the rest of their lives. Haoming enthusiastically agrees, already wondering if they can start moving their things in today.